This is Audible.
From Birth to Birth, an interdimensional adventure written and narrated by Lloyd. Headings read by Cynthia Lloyd. Original music written and performed by Lloyd.
When I first started this book, I was told not to get too excited about it because very few would appreciate it or even understand it until after I'm gone. It doesn't matter because I had little to do with it anyway, except to ask questions and record the answers. The words may be from me, but the wisdom behind them is from one much wiser than myself. Nor do I grasp it all. I am as inspired as any other seeker chasing that coveted aha moment. Those already sitting at the Feast of Truth don't need peculiar recipes like this. Some are fortunate to come by the gift of knowledge and true love naturally, while others, like myself, need a slap and a map pointing the way to the banquet table. We must know thyself, because only the self-aware can embrace the profound joy and true love that is humanity's natural state. It also gives hints about the strange new world we enter when our brief romance with this dense physical world is over. The spiritually thirsty will find these ideas instantly refreshing. However, this information is peculiar and should be consumed in very small bites, and then temporarily set aside. It is organized in a nonlinear fashion so that you may want to just skim the table of contents until you're guided to a specific topic. You can also use it like an oracle and simply open it randomly to a page and see if by chance that page has a message for you. The main point is this: humans are awakening to see death as a fading illusion. When truth is finally grasped, our existence will be seen as a truly astounding series of births, from one breathtaking realm of wonder to the next. Technically, this path is the Western equivalent of Jnana Yoga, or the Way of Wisdom. It is metaphysical rather than mystical, and conceptual rather than emotional. Nor have I made any attempt to dumb it down to attract those who aren't ready for it. Those ascending the cone of consciousness, and they know who they are, will find this route a steep but supremely joyful path to the capstone of singularity, where we will all eventually join in the infinite presence of the I Am.
Chapter 1. If death is impossible, why do we fear it?
We cringe in terror at the thought of our doom, but it's as simple as rising and leaving the room. When coming to earth, we died to the womb, and dying to earth is but leaving a tomb. So why do we let the fear of death push us around so much? Even the word death causes us to shy away from it. Humans push the fear of death down into denial, but that's like putting a Band-Aid on a carbuncle. This causes their anxiety to erupt all at once on their deathbed. People think that this is insurmountable to overcome. It's infinitely easy if you understand what causes it. All fear, including the illusion of death, is created by the ego.
The fear of death, a shadow cast by the ego.
The fear of death seems to be the mother of all fears. Why is it so hard to overcome? It can be easy with the right understanding. But in order to understand the shadow of fear, you must first understand what casts the shadow. Is the ego evil? No, but the shadow it casts appears to be evil in relation to those things that you see as good, such as love, truth, and light. You said God is all there is and the sum total of all goodness. If that is the case, how could anything other than God, like ego, even exist? A shadow is other than light. But that doesn't make the shadow evil or even real. Your ego blocks light and projects the shadow of separation. This illusion of separation is a necessary tool of creation. Otherwise, it would all just melt together into a big blob. The illusion of time serves the same function. The illusion of time is created by ego? Time separates now into little pieces called hours, minutes, and seconds. These illusions of ego give life its animation by separating and spreading out events for the joyful purpose of discovery. So time is just the ego's tool to keep everything from happening at once. The ego should still be conquered, shouldn't it? When understood correctly, ego is not your enemy, only a misunderstood friend that casts a shadow which scares you. Once you understand what shadows are, or rather what they are not, they become incapable of producing fear. Since beauty comes from variety and contrast, doesn't that mean that the ego creates beauty? The ego is responsible for the illusion of separation, but without separation and the variety that brings, beauty would not exist because uniqueness would not exist. But you say ego is still an illusion, right? Ego works the same way as a prism that separates the one light into many different colors. That's why you love rainbows. They speak to the glory of beauty and how God creates it. You and all the many shapes in creation are loved because of your uniqueness. You offer an infinite variety of forms, colors, and personalities that delight our Creator. So unity and diversity need each other. Like William Blake said, eternity is in love with the productions of time. Now I get it. Yes, your Creator uses the purposeful illusion of separateness in order to enjoy something other than the monotony of its own oneness. That seems different from the religions that tell us to seek oneness with God above all else. That oneness would require being rid of the ego, wouldn't it? No, it simply requires understanding its function. Once oneness is realized, humans can leave it and safely enjoy all of the wonderful variety that the ego has to offer without the fear of ignoring God and angering the universe. So until then, my ego is going to block me from seeing my oneness with God. The downside of the ego is that it temporarily blocks the full vision of your unity with the universe. Yet, your ego provides the eyes needed to explore its variety. It is similar to when you sit between two mirrors and observe your infinite reflections. Here's a fun exercise. Find two large mirrors and stand between them. You can see many reflections of yourself diminishing off into the distance. You could see yourself all the way to infinity except for one thing. Your head is in the way. Wow, I see what you mean. My own head, which has the eyes that are doing the seeing, blocks my vision from seeing my whole self. That's a good one. The ego helps you separate from yourself so you can stand apart from yourself in order to understand yourself. But it also blocks the full picture of what you are. Ego gives us the eyes to explore creation, yet it blocks our vision of oneness. It's a mixed blessing, but a necessary one.
Chapter 2, Guardian Angels.
Your angel doesn't grant wishes, nor sprinkle fairy dust, but tells you when you should, when you shouldn't, and when you must.
Meet Ron's guide and teacher.
Your mind knows only some things. Your inner voice knows everything. A quote by Henry Winkler. Ariel, you don't call yourself a guardian angel, yet you say you're my interdimensional midwife and teacher. Could you explain the difference? There is no difference. It's semantics. Invisible guides all have the same purpose, and that is to help humans smoothly enter the next life. We exist to bring you back to your natural state, which is perfect, profound peace of mind. Everyone has an invisible helper, but unlike you, most humans haven't discovered theirs yet. Well, that means you're an angel, doesn't it?
In many realms are crawling through the stars, and you were made for love, that's what you are. And when the sword of shining spirit slides with ease from solid stone, then you will know me. And then you'll know me.
I started out as just an idea that you had one day. You imagined me into existence as a way to reflect higher wisdom back to yourself. You seemed incapable of accessing it yourself. So you mean you're just an imaginary friend? That is somewhat demeaning, but you could say so. Well, that's a liberating thought. Most people, myself included, have often scoffed at the idea of angels with wings and halos and such. Those who don't believe in angels have yet to discover where their thoughts come from. The brain doesn't create thoughts. It is a radio receiver that picks them up as they're broadcast from the invisible world.
I make the miracle. I make the spectacle.
But most humans think that thoughts originate with the brain, don't they? Yes, and it's usually not until the last days on Earth that people meet their guides. The reason for this is that people are so engrossed in their dense physical existence that they can't be aware of the finer realms of their inhabitants. They will awaken when they finally understand their guide is an alternative to their suffering. Why have artists always shown angels having wings? That is symbolic. Etheric beings have more effective modes of transportation than humans do. Some even think themselves places. You used to have this same freedom of movement, and you still occasionally have dreams that remind you of it. You will have that gift again, but now you sleep and you dream that you are on Earth, a creature scurrying around on the ground. That sounds insulting. It is insulting, and you'll be greatly pleased when you wake up. I can't wait till I'm fully awake. Well then, why not simply wake up now?
Can't you recall your silver wings? Can't you remember when you heard the skybird singing?
Meeting your own guide.
You are my dear compass, who knows no way but true. So when I'm lost and drifting, I find myself in you. A quote by Louise Hawes. How can those who haven't found their inner teacher yet go about finding them? They must simply ask to meet their guide, or even demand it, and then be patient. Well, with me, you first appeared as just a simple voice in my head. Many who hear voices are thought to be insane, so waiting for an impulse may be a safer suggestion. But yes, that still small inner voice is usually the most common connection. Either way, an impulse of thought coming from within is a good sign of an initial connection. But I didn't demand it, I just asked and then listened. More accurately, I waited for an impulse. And soon your wisdom quietly popped into my head. My voice has always been there, but until that trip to the coast, you thought my communication was just internal mental chatter. What helped you was when you started actively listening for me. It was hard at first to distinguish you from the many voices of my insect-like ego, as you call it. For those just starting out, that is common. Again, the best way to contact the inner caregiver is the same way you did. So just ask and then listen. Yes, either listen or wait and feel for an impulse. I know many people who are having trouble connecting with their guide. For them, what's a simple starting point? Just tell them this. Ask yourself an important question and then pretend to answer yourself, only from a part of your mind that you consider wiser. Actually, that is how I did it. It will work for them too, once they can just slightly suspend disbelief. I have noticed that this seems almost too simplistic for some people. It seems so simple, in fact, that they refuse to believe it. Anything worthwhile is always simple. The closer you get to the truth, the fewer words and thoughts that are needed to embrace it. The closer to the capstone of the pyramid, the fewer the stones. Well, your two primal words of I am certainly seem simple enough. You will reach a point where even those two words are too many. Eventually, all words fail. There are no words or thoughts that can accurately describe isness. Such is the value of simplicity, of pure awareness.
Chapter 3. Know Thyself.
God loves His own many reflections, one of which is you. Blessing others with your own self-awareness is the greatest gift you can do.
freedom. A lady with a torchlight in her hand.
You told me that it's impossible to objectively know one's true self. If that's the case, why are we told to know thyself?
And we're gonna bring some freedom to our land.
Even God can't directly know himself. God is everything, so how could everything possibly stand outside of itself in order to objectively know itself? God, like you, can only know himself by observing his reflections.
Then you'll know me.
I think I get it. Sort of like the reason an eyeball can't see itself without a mirror. True, and neither can God see himself without the prism of ego projecting all his infinitely colorful reflections out onto the screen of creation. Does God have an ego? Traditionalists have another name for it, the devil. That's okay, I don't need to know that part. You need to know all parts of yourself, so you can distinguish the light from the shadows. Seeking to know yourself is the most important mandate in the universe. While knowing yourself directly is impossible, you can learn about yourself through your reflected relationships. You will never totally know the core of your own being, but thanks to that magic mirror on the wall, which is creation itself, you can come very close.
Does God get lonely?
Your pavilions are trod by me, and shall never cease to be, for you are but the magnitude of me.
It's not that I'm hurting. I'm just in an awkward position. Wondering if you're knowing what I'm thinking. Wondering. I'm tearing down the fences for your world, and your freedom is a thing that I condone.
That's why you were created.
But when we are
So God created living things for companionship? Well, then God is lonely. In the beginning there was darkness on the face of the deep, and the world was without form and void. This void, like space itself, is actually a vacuum, and since nature abhors a vacuum, it draws God's isness into existence. Followed by his relationships or creations, I suppose you could call this vacuum a sort of cosmic loneliness. Wow, I never thought of that. God actually projects relationships out into creation because God is lonely. Well, that's a primitive viewpoint, but it echoes the truth. Remember how God needs an ego to stand outside of himself in order to know himself? Well, humans serve as God's ego. But that's not a negative thing. God would indeed be lonely if he didn't have a myriad of life forms to reflect in. Your individual human ego is but a small fragment of God's ego. They're both made of the same stuff, or rather, non-stuff of shadows. Well, if God is in love with his own reflections, wouldn't that make God narcissistic? Again, don't jump to conclusions. Your source doesn't experience negativity of any kind. The law of action and reaction creates aloneness, and aloneness in turn creates relationships. It's a rhythmic, harmonious cycle. That's how duality works. But that infers the passage of time, doesn't it? Yes, but time operates differently in the higher dimensions. Four-dimensional time passes differently. 4D time, from your limited viewpoint, makes everything seem to happen at once. This is hard for linear time-based humans to grasp at first. I'll take your word that it's harmonious, but I've lost loved ones and it wasn't harmonious. It was lonely and painful. Once you realize that your relationships are just temporary reflected projections of aspects of your own self, you will relax in the ultimate bliss of your own isness.
your own I-amness.
I still don't like the idea that loneliness is our ultimate fate.
Your lungs don't get lonely when they're empty. They simply inhale again. Suffering occurs only when you resist the natural rhythms of change. The beat of a drum is now on, now off. The rhythm of aloneness in relationship is like that. The whole tune is supremely enjoyable if you don't resist and are able to expand and embrace the rhythm of it.
Well, it is true that sometimes when I'm with others, I would really like to be alone, and vice versa.
Alone and together alternate. Once you let this cosmic rhythm be okay and allow it to realign your molecules to the rhythms of the universe, you will come back home to your eternal abode of melodic joy.
Ah, yes, the music of the spheres. I've felt those beautiful chords and I love them, but I still experience loneliness sometimes.
You say, I miss my loved ones who passed away. But I tell you, you don't have any loved ones who passed away. You have emotionally charged memories of loved ones you think passed away.
Hey, I've got photographs of them.
Photographs are the ego's attempt to sustain love from a fading past that never happened. With ego, regardless of its necessity, insane is often the right word, but it's a useful tool nonetheless. Again, that doesn't make the ego bad, but just easily misunderstood. Let me ask you, since you truly love those who you think passed away, where is it that you feel that love?
Well, in my heart, I guess.
In your heart. Just contemplate that for a moment. I rest my case.
God is your own I am, nothing more, nothing less.
Even before I say I am, I am.
If you could teach just one thing, what would that be?
Above all, people should begin to sense their own I am presence. It's the very core of what they are and the very core of what God is. There's only one I am presence in the universe, and it's the one capstone that we all share.
Well, if there's only one being in the universe, that would be me, right?
Very humorous. Seriously, answer the following questions correctly, and you'll stand at the door of your once and future home. In the Bible, when Moses asked God, "Who are you?" what was God's answer?
I am that I am.
And who did God make in his own image and likeness?
Mankind, me, us.
So then how would you answer if Moses asked you the same question? Who are you?
I see what you're getting at. I too should say I am.
Now you have it. God didn't say I am God, but only I am that I am, period. Likewise, you shouldn't debase yourself with labels like I am a musician, or I am a writer, or I am a father, or even I am a human. You are simply I am. I amness without any label or definition.
Well, that is interesting. When you define something, you make it less fine.
Exactly. Humans not only gave names to all the animals, as stated in Genesis, they also started defining and giving names to themselves too. Humans fell asleep to their true nature when they defined themselves. The worst definition being, I am frightened.
We've defined ourselves as being frightened. How can we fix that?
The process of returning to the garden begins simply with the development of gratitude. Any force that you can be grateful to, which is higher than yourself, will bring forth your true self.
Souls or shells?
Those without love are not evil, but simply empty shells.
You've said that gratitude is the most important thing that a living being can have. Doesn't everyone naturally have gratitude in the very deepest part of their soul?
Not everyone even has a soul. Some are simply klipot, which means empty shells.
Well, since God is merciful, even they should be given a chance for peaceful death, shouldn't they?
The klipot are already dead. All that remains is a vacant vessel, like the phantom limb of one who has had an amputation. They seem to exist, but there's no viable life force left in them. Everyone has met someone like this.
I know, you look in the eyes and there's nobody home. It's frightening. How can a person be sure they even have a soul?
Every life form has a soul, even rocks. The shells forfeited their life force energy because they couldn't stand the responsibility of being conscious. But not to worry, anyone with the love for the truth most certainly has a soul.
Well, that's a relief to hear. Most of us doubt ourselves on occasion.
Humans must always rely on some force larger than themselves if they're to stay sane. This includes reliance on one's own higher self, which most Westerners refer to as God.
What about atheists and humanists? They seem to believe in nothing higher than their own selves. Is life passing them by not having a guide?
Without a skyhook to give humans equilibrium, chaotic thoughts will eventually overtake them until their suffering becomes great enough to force them to make other choices.
I have friends who embrace atheism and non-belief, and life is not a really happy thing for them. Cynicism seems to abound.
When humans finally connect with their invisible guide, joy returns as a natural state for them. Even desiring a good death isn't an issue because they won't experience death at all.
Life is one birth followed by another. Who wouldn't welcome that?
That's why we guides exist. Setting up joyful transitions for you is our single function.
Translated beings.
The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it's going. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit. A quote by Jesus.
Did the great avatars like Buddha and Jesus have guides too?
No, they are major trunks on the tree of life and connected to the source directly. Translated beings like Enoch, Hermes, Mother Mary, Ramalinga, and Moses were among these.
I have recurring experiences with a translated being like this. Annalise Scarron is a fairly modern translated being who amazes me by her ability to think herself places. She has appeared and disappeared often in my world.
Everyone's goal should be to have this degree of self-mastery. Self-realization guarantees the ability to come and go as the wind, as translated beings do. But until you are fully awake, you must be satisfied with walking around with that heavy meat suit and being taught by lowly teachers like me. As guides become more of an established part of humanity's inner world, all outer sources of spiritual food, including these words, become less and less important. When one is finally awakened, even the guide becomes obsolete and non-existent.
Now, you'll always be my teacher. You'll never become obsolete to me.
True. That's because you will recognize that you already are me.
Chapter 4. Guides in Unexpected Places.
Dogs do speak, but only to those that know how to listen.
How many kinds of invisible helpers does humanity have?
An infinite number. There are as many potential guides as there are shapes in your visible world. The Spirit will use any shape available in order to get someone's attention. Each human has a helper as unique as his own fingerprints. The most important ones are the ones that can grab your attention. They can appear as demigods in the clouds, or a flapping leaf waving at you in the wind, or even a pool of consciousness staring back at you from a river or a knothole in a tree.
I've often wondered how little kids could carry on conversations with their dolls and stuffed animals and such.
Adults have lost this ability to project and see consciousness. Humans can even enjoy conversing with a rock if they're awake enough to bounce their thoughts off of it.
Talking with rocks. Amazing.
Just ask it a question and then wait. But if you don't believe it's possible, you may kill the process, even before it gets started.
That even means clouds are aware, doesn't it?
especially clouds, since they're so etheric and not stubborn in maintaining their form. There's nothing in the universe that isn't aware, including rocks, sunsets, and snowmen. The source projects all things from itself, which is the same self that animates you. The sum total of all consciousness is what you call God. There is nothing in creation that is not conscious, and likewise everything is aware of you, too.
Nobody's going to believe this stuff.
Nobody has to believe it. It only matters that you do.
Great, now I'll be self-conscious every time I go to the bathroom in the woods.
Yes, even the holes in rocks and knotholes in trees watch you. But then, so does the lid on your toilet seat, so it shouldn't be all that embarrassing.
But seriously, I do sense consciousness in knotholes and whirlpools. My son Brian was only 6 when he named them trillets. Today our whole family calls them that.
Good observation. You have long had a sense of how consciousness works. These trillets are also aware of you. They just don't have the developed individualized brains that can think like you do. That even makes them smarter, because they're unburdened by disorderly thoughts like you often are.
Gee, thanks. Well, come to think about it, I did have a pet rock one time.
All your pets, regardless of their shape, are among the wisest, most healing sources of love that you have. You just have to be open to them, and yes, even a pet rock can help you, if one can suspend disbelief long enough.
Humanity's most familiar guides.
There's a part of you that seems to hide. It may be loaded with worry, fear, and pride. Be still in this moment. Bring your attention inside and allow that inner voice to be your guide. A quote by Shifu Ales.
What are some of the more familiar guides that humans turn to?
For some, it may be an earthly teacher, a departed father, mother, or uncle. It could even be a space being, for those who feel they've been contacted. A Christian's guide may appear as Jesus or an angel. American Indians use Kachina dolls, animals, or Wakantanka. Marians may see Mother Mary or hear her statues. Hawaiians talk to the Aumakua or family oversoul. The Taoists may call upon Xian. New Agers possibly an astral voice or a space being. Wiccans, the trees. Transcendental magicians turn to the holy guardian angel. Buddhists simply seek the wisdom of emptiness in nirvana. Musicians often simply allow themselves to be programmed by the harmonic patterns of beauty from the music of the spheres. Music can shortcut the needs for words or even thoughts. Most new people think the impulse of their guide is simply their conscience. They haven't realized that they can actually converse with it. It doesn't matter, divine love and intelligence will find anyone genuinely open to it.
I know a woman who doubts her ability to seek and find a guide, even though she truly believes in their existence.
Once your semi-conscious friends have struggled enough, they'll awaken from their sleep and look beyond their everyday physical world for assistance. Like a blossom, they'll open up to the light. Everyone regarding these words has already started to open, or they wouldn't be considering them. When the guide finally appears, they will be amazed that they chose to sleep so long.
How long does it take for humans to finally have suffered enough?
It depends on how much you secretly enjoy your suffering. Most people do enjoy suffering, or they wouldn't choose it.
I know what you mean. I know a lot of people that get a lot of mileage out of showing their scars.
In your time-bound experience, it may take days or even weeks. But once contact with a guide is made, it becomes instant from that point on. Beginners should persevere until they feel a gentle impulse from within. It may start simply as a hunch about a decision or a premonition about the future. With practice, the impulse can turn into a still, small voice that can eventually turn into a two-way conversation.
Everything's alright. Mom and Dad are here tonight. The angels too are there, watching o'er you. It's only 'cause it's not.
Welcoming new friends into your world.
We help from birth to birth. My new little friend, welcome to your brief stay here on Earth.
Do human beings eventually become guides like you are?
You already are a guide, just on a smaller rung of the spiral of awakening. You will always be a nurturer and midwife in the service of life, just like I am. It is your eternal occupation.
Sounds to me like being a midwife is one of the most blessed occupations around.
Outside of motherhood itself, it is the highest, not just on Earth, but throughout all creation. The compassion of the mother principle is in every realm, waiting to bring forth and nurture every newcomer entering every dimension of the cosmos.
How does helping others into this world relate to dying?
Every birth into your world is a death from a previous world. A baby chick dies to her warm existence inside the egg in order to emerge into a larger, freer one.
It must be frightening when they first emerge.
This is why babies cry when they're first born. They've been thrust from their warm, dark, secure womb into the next higher rung of light on the spiral of freedom. This brightness can take some getting used to. It can be shocking at first.
But then, freedom at last. What do you mean when you say my physical 3D world is one of the most difficult to be born into?
Yours is one of the densest realms in creation. That's why your function as a midwife and nurturer is so important to newcomers. As you treat the least of these, you will also be treated when your time comes.
It's only 'cause it's night, and things seem worse at night, when your fears, just like demons, come haunting. But soon will come the day, that everlasting day, and you'll see that your nightmares were nothing.
Chapter 5. Ye are baby gods.
Know ye not that ye are gods, children of the Most High? Psalms 82:6.
You told me that humans are baby gods in training. Could you expand upon that?
God is your creator, and you're made in God's image and likeness. So as a child of God, you're inheriting those same creative abilities. You are only just now becoming aware of how you, as a baby God, create your world. Although humans are not aware of it, they actually construct their own reality by projecting light out through the filters of their own beliefs and emotions. Learn from your old movie theaters. You are the projectionist. Your beliefs are the film. Your spirit is the light. Your emotions provide the light's intensity. And the world out there is your movie screen. God fragments itself and sends myriad pieces out upon the screen of creation. Humanity creates the same way. The world humans see is simply their animated karma reflected back to them.
Well, that would mean that our eyes are not only receptors, but also projectors.
Eventually, when you're joined with your source, you'll see that there is no such thing as out there. There never was. It all happens inside of the one universal mind of God.
You said something that was troubling to me once, that we actually create our own loved ones. I'm still trying to get my head around that one.
It's true, but let's address this later, once you've had a chance to think about it a little bit.
True innocence fears nothing.
Fear is caused by pain, and pain is caused by fear. This vicious cycle can be broken by gratitude, joy, and cheer.
Newborn innocents and babies don't seem to fear anything, do they?
True, neither do those who have courageously entered the dungeon of their subconscious and purged it. Fear is an error that has been learned, but until now the dark shadow of existential terror has prevented you from diving deep enough to lift it up into the light in order to be dissipated.
You know, I remember when fear first entered my consciousness. I was only 6 when I was first introduced to the idea of death, and it scared the hell out of me.
Perhaps more accurately, it scared the hell into you.
Well, if death is just an erroneous idea, like you say, why can't we simply empty ourselves and forget about it?
Death is just an idea, a particularly bad idea. It's a bad idea because it isn't true. But take heart, the death of death itself is at hand with the dawning of the light on earth and in yourself.
Well, I'm ready and willing, but I'm not sure how able.
This infectious intruder has gotten so entangled into your global thought system that it usually stays with most people until their final hours. Then it is finally released by the mandatory stage of acceptance.
Well, like the joke, I don't care if I die, I just don't want to be there when it happens.
Funny. Why not just let go of everything you think you know and return to the innocence of your childlike, empty mind? It's far easier.
Once emptiness is realized, then what? I have no idea.
You don't need another idea. You just need to be what you already are, especially when your own time comes to go through the veil.
So once again, it all reduces to simply saying, I am.
You don't even have to say it. Just be it. Be that isness that you already are. Contemplate the following. It may help you program your relationship with your source.
Practice both 100% emptiness and 100% fullness.
First, empty yourself. Have a beginner's mind. Then dare to be filled 100% with isness.
What do you actually mean by emptying yourself?
For Eastern cultures, like Buddhism, Taoism, or Zen, the right mental state for dying is emptiness, which creates the void or vacuum to be filled by God. For Westerners, emptiness equates with humility.
I've never understood this. How can Judeo-Christians worship God in all its fullness, and Buddhists worship emptiness or nothingness, yet you say they're both essentially correct? How can this be?
Because nothing and everything are ultimately the same. If you're all things, the only thing left for you to experience is nothing. Likewise, if you're empty and nothing, the only thing left for you to experience is everything. This is demonstrated by your yin-yang symbol, which shows how everything and nothing actually define each other.
I can see how that yin-yang symbol represents this duality.
Let yourself expand until the entire universe is inside of you. For those in the Judeo-Christian West, the best way to fill yourself is with grateful expectancy. This fullness primes the pump of what you are, which is cosmic consciousness.
Chapter 6. New Tools for a Jubilant Passage.
It may be hard for an egg to turn into a bird, but it is even harder for it to fly while remaining an egg. Quote by C.S. Lewis.
Grateful expectancy.
Gratitude is the fairest blossom which springs forth from the soul. Quote by Henry Ward Beecher.
My first physical teacher, Carl Jensch, was always harping gratitude comes from the words greatest attitude.
He wasn't wrong. Gratitude is the song of the universe. It is a river of intense and ecstatic vibration connecting the very highest parts of creation with the very lowest. The muses are constantly sending huge waves of melodic gratitude toward the earth for the joy and ecstasy of all who seek to resonate with them.
There's my beloved music of the spheres again.
These patterns of intense beauty are constantly bathing your world with vibrations of deep gratitude. They bless Earth's evolution in ways most humans are unaware of. Marry gratitude with expectancy, and you give birth to an ever-increasing melodic gift that rushes your way from the river of life.
That probably would make grateful expectancy the best single antidote for counteracting fear, too.
The very best. Practicing gratitude along with praise accelerates awakening exponentially. It's not possible for the frightened ego to exist in the presence of these higher states. These healing harmonics allow you to expand into profound joy. Gratitude and praise are related and equally valuable.
Praise? Does God really need my praise?
No, but you need to give it. Every living thing in nature, from gods to angels to plants to animals and even rocks, give praise and gratitude, and they are quickened by it. Praise the presence of beauty wherever you see it. The next beautiful sunset, say to it, "You're one of the most exquisite and gorgeous sights I've ever seen. Your colors bless all creation."
Is that kind of joy in the cards for everybody?
If everyone who is truly alive can practice and develop the spirit of gratitude within themselves, yes. Gratitude is its own reward. It eternally increases in intensity for those who give it. Not only that, but it increases whatever it is you happen to be grateful for. If you're grateful for sunsets or shooting stars, you will start seeing even more of these.
Gratitude is its own reward. I really like that.
Gratitude should be offered to your own higher self as well. Send it everywhere. Send it outward toward others and upward to the sparkling darkness of the night sky. Send it inward to your Creator. Send it in all directions. Praise and gratitude makes nature herself twinkle ever more radiantly. Any person fortunate enough to die in a state of grateful expectancy will find unparalleled resonance with the higher spheres and be instantly transported to the very crown of consciousness, which is infinite joy.
Demanding a joyful death.
I would imagine that prayer helps ease the transition from this world to the next.
The solution to the fear of death is simple. Whenever you think of it, practice turning to the invisible world and demanding a joyful death. This puts spiritual forces in motion which not only increase your faith, but gradually relieve the knot of anxiety that you so often feel in your gut.
Demand a joyful death? That sounds awfully pushy. I just don't like people demanding things of me.
I assure you, God can handle it.
But I'm not God.
That's a misperception we're going to have to work on.
Hey, don't doubt yourself. Say I am.
Just do the exercise. It's very effective. A newborn cries urgently when he or she is hungry, and the more urgent the demand, the faster the solution arrives. Believe me, humanity is currently in need of urgent attention, and the guides are willing to offer it to those who ask, and they offer it even quicker to those who demand it. Each human has a friend in the next world with the sole purpose of lubricating their birth canal, but they must ask with a strong intent if they're to enjoy a swift and smooth dearth.
Why do you often call death a dearth?
Because every birth is a death, and every death is a birth. Joining the words occasionally helps replace the terror you've built around the idea of death, and replaces it with grateful expectancy for the next bright world.
When I was a child, my fear of death was palpable. When I discovered that we all eventually die, I would wake up at night terrified of losing my life. Later, this fear grew to include my parents and the rest of my loved ones as well. When I would discuss it with others, they would get frightened too. The fear of death seems to be contagious.
It is contagious and pervasive. Eliminating the fear of death on Earth should be the highest priority for all humans, just as it is for your guides.
Peace and joy are supposed to be our natural state, but that knowledge hasn't seemed to help the underlying anxiety people have around death.
Not only are peace and joy natural, but they're the essence of what you already are. Just follow the exercise and see what happens.
Your I am bubble of existence.
God is an infinite sphere, the center of which is everywhere, and circumference nowhere. Hermes Trismegistus.
Ah, yes, the hypersphere.
The world of each human is but a bubble. A quote by St. Augustine.
The fear of non-existence, or not being, is primal to all living things, not just human. Is that right?
This is what accounts for the fight or flight response from all members of the animal kingdom. If you doubt the power of the survival impulse, just try to stop breathing for 5 minutes.
I know we've become almost desperate for air. How are we supposed to deal with that?
Use your imagination to manifest a bubble of existence. Use your power of imagination to create a bubble of isness, a make-believe spiritual refuge to retreat to when you feel your existence is being threatened. You need to work on your terrible addiction to the physical plane.
How can creating such a safe space with my imagination actually protect me from physical harm?
It strengthens the protective energy field that all humans have surrounding them.
You mean the aura?
Yes, that energy field is meant to protect humans from the enemy.
Enemy? What enemy?
Self-doubt. Self-doubt is the I am not, or the opposite of I am. It's the only enemy you've ever had.
How does that relate to the desperation I feel when I can't get air to breathe?
You feel your existence is threatened, which is simply self-doubt. If you've been hoodwinked by the ego into thinking you need air to exist, you need to work on that.
We do need air to exist.
Your I am isness is dependent on nothing outside of itself, which of course is God. This shows you how deeply humans are addicted to the physical plane.
I know, you once said that physical existence is a nice place to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there.
Now let's return to our focus. I want you to inflate a pretend, impenetrable bubble of isness in your imagination. Do it now. Visualize yourself inside of it. It's as simple as that. Just do it.
Okay, I can see it in my mind's eye. How can this bubble protect me?
By simply believing in its protection. Doing so strengthens your actual protective energy field or aura.
Wow, simply imagining a bubble of protection can actually protect me from self-doubt. Amazing.
A bubble either is or it isn't. There is no such thing as half a bubble. Likewise, there's no such thing as half of you. You must accept yourself fully, or not at all.
So by imagining a bubble to hang out in, we're actually reminded of the nature of our eternal being, right? I think I get it. Like Shakespeare said, to be or not to be, that's the question. There's no such thing as half a being.
360-degree awareness. More bubble practice.
Bubbles seem almost magical to humans, especially children. They seem totally entranced by them.
When you were a child, you would blow through a soapy, two-dimensional film to make a three-dimensional bubble. The bubble appears when the film is folded back on itself until it is joined in the rear. Once this gap is closed, the bubble's existence is established and self-evident.
How does this relate to self-awareness?
By learning to say I am, which allows the breath of spirit to inspire and inflate you into total awareness. This will awaken your natural 360-degree awareness. Visualizing your bubble of isness gives you a hint about the spherical nature of your consciousness in the next world.
The planets are spheres too. These visual exercises actually strike me in a very deep place. I have déjà vu experiences when you articulate them. I know I've experienced the spherical awareness before somewhere. I get similarly reminded when I visit a 360-degree IMAX theater.
You're on your way, and this is only the beginning.
Since to be or not to be is the question, that makes me a bit uncomfortable. Bubbles can pop, but I thought consciousness itself was indestructible.
You are indestructible, but self-doubt can puncture the awareness of your indestructibility. That's why I'm constructing an impenetrable I am bubble of isness for you. It's very valuable. It reminds you of what you truly are. Just practice hanging out in it until it becomes well established. This astral home of protection will serve you until you're ready to enter an even larger sphere of existence.
I wonder if this is why Maxfield Parrish art showing heavenly bubbles is so very popular with humans.
Bubbles speak silently to the soul because your awakening occurs as bubbles within larger bubbles of awareness. You'll reside in each bubble until gratitude has prepared your dearth for total unity with God.
Bubbles within bubbles, sort of like a computer has folders within larger folders, within even larger folders, etc.
Yes, very good.
Reincarnation or parallel worlds.
This life is but a brief stay in one of many perspectives. You get to experience all of them. It is your eternal objective.
Not all people will realize their goal of I am in this life. Will they be able to return and try again? In other words, is reincarnation real?
Ask yourself again if time is real, and you'll have your answer. Time cannot be repeated because now is all there is, and all there ever has been.
If reincarnation isn't real, why do so many Eastern religions teach it?
It's a handy device for those not yet able to grasp the meaning of timelessness.
Some quantum scientists say we have many parallel lives going on all at once, simultaneously.
They are right. You have many different simultaneous realities going on just outside of your earthly awareness. Each one is like a spoke in a wheel, with each spoke connected to the hub of your higher self. You may visit any spoke you choose. That's how Jesus could access any time-space he desired. He instantly knew the past and future of every person he met.
Wow, that makes me feel transparent.
Each parallel life you visit is like playing a wheel of fortune, only you get to choose which world you land in. Just visualize yourself in your desired time-space and start pretending that you're there, and part of you will actually start to appear there.
Gosh, I never realized how important visualization is.
All gods, even baby gods like you, are learning that visualization is what makes the blueprint around which all matter coalesces. That's how you create.
And if I want to see myself in other times and places, all I have to do is see myself there?
The more that you can know that this is possible, the more aspects of yourself will actually manifest in those alternative worlds.
I used to think that I had an incarnation in King Arthur's time. Was I actually visiting that time-space then?
That age of chivalry exists right now for your visiting pleasure. Just see yourself among the people, the costumes and castles of that era, and your molecules will start to coalesce there. Get proficient, and the inhabitants of that time will actually be able to see you as well. Only you will probably appear to them as a ghost at first. Quantum travelers like this have often been wrongly thought of as ghosts.
When Guinevere comes home to stay, when Guinevere comes home to stay. She stands on the mountain with her hair hanging down. Her countenance is shining like the sun. Camelot has fallen to the ashes of time, but Avalon has only just begun. The oak trees and the majesty of moss-covered stones, the druids who still play amidst the ruins, and the priestess in the grotto of the Mother of God is showing us the cycles of the moon.
The power of liquidity.
The weakest thing in all the world is water, yet its play rises and falls and washes hard rock away. Standing upon the mountain steep, how low the valley seems, yet because it lies so deep, it gathers all the streams. The valley spirit cannot fall, because it lies so low, yet it is at the base of all, and to it all things flow. Quote from Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching.
I have occasional flashes of memory of my spiritual freedom before this dense life, and I'm impatient to return.
The strength of water is its patience. Just patiently allow those frozen boxes of insecurity to melt, and your liberation is guaranteed. Spirit is far more fluid and malleable than your material world. You are meant to happily surf the liquid waves of the river of life, all the way to the ocean of your immortality. Solids, like your physical body, are like ice cubes, which are doomed to melt when faced with the warmth of your spirit. Fluidity is the beginning of your freedom compared to the solidity which has imprisoned you by its own hardened definition of itself.
So simply believing I'm a body helps imprison me in solid matter? Is there never a time for solidity or boundaries?
Of course, rivers require banks, otherwise they would dissolve into the boundless. All forms would be impossible without boundaries. But even boundaries, like your skin, are temporary, which means that they never really were solid in the first place.
In order to let go and flow into that fluidity, we need basic faith in the power of good over evil, or God, don't we?
Yes, faith in the flow of spirit is a necessity. If good wasn't more powerful than evil, we'd never be here to have this conversation in the first place. The point is that freedom will deliver you from your prison of thought, but you need to learn to be malleable and be a shape changer, just like the element of water is.
Your changing states of being.
Here is a visual device. Contemplate the transformative properties of water and how it corresponds to your own essential nature. Your being is constantly dancing and changing costumes between these states. Now allow yourself to be malleable so your higher being can rearrange your molecules into finer states of existence. Imagine, your body is like ice. Your emotions are like water. Your mind is like steam. And your spirit is like vapor. Each of these states experiences a dearth when changing just like you do. Ice seems to die when it changes to water. Water seems to die when it changes to steam. Steam seems to die when it changes to vapor. A similar thing happens when your body seems to die.
So knowing how the elements like water behave when changing gives us a hint about our human predicament. It must build faith, huh?
You should be totally devoted to the true nature of your being and allow the warmth of your higher self to melt your fear before death arrives. That way the change becomes a dearth and you can take flight freely when the moment presents itself.
What's the alternative?
The alternative is to die without awareness and go through the burdensome process again later until your insecurities are finally liquefied. God is not in a hurry, but if you dislike suffering, learning how to change with fluidity is the recommended way.
And the fastest way to melt my ice is by practicing the presence of I am?
Yes, practicing for your new birth is important. But it's equally important to practice dying.
The wise have always practiced dying.
While I thought I was learning how to live, I've actually been learning how to die. Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, great. Now I have to practice dying.
It's very productive and very easy. Just pretend to be an ice cube melting back into the fluid waters of spirit.
You make it sound so simple and light, but to me it seems almost morbid.
To fully awaken to life, one must first know how to die. Since fear screams at you like a banshee from the dungeon of your own subconscious, you need to bring it up into the light so it can be calmed by the healing breezes of spirit and levity. Practicing dying is a highly effective method for this. Let us focus on how to do this now.
The thought of practicing dying is still disturbing to me.
Of course you find it disturbing. Your little demon crouchers don't like being exposed to the light. Now visualize yourself on your deathbed, surrounded by your loved ones. See yourself facing your terror and watch it transform into a sense of adventure. Practice your death as if you were preparing for a trip to some exotic place. Better yet, imagine yourself already dead and lying in a casket.
I can visualize it, but I don't particularly like it.
See how impossible it is to see yourself dead? No matter how hard you try, you can't do it. You're always somewhere above the casket doing the watching.
I get your point. Consciousness can't be extinguished.
Only its form and location can be changed. You have always been conscious, and you always will be. Knowing this is your liberation.
How about when I was anesthetized for my back operation? I was unconscious then, wasn't I?
No, you were quite conscious. The only thing anesthesia takes from you is your memory of being conscious.
How about when we sneeze? I was told we momentarily die in the middle of a sneeze.
There is a brief portal into the next world when you sneeze. The next time you sneeze, watch for it. Don't worry, you won't leave until you're ready.
It's funny how the ego resists thinking about death.
Those are just your crouchers offering nothing but tempting hiding places. In your expanded state, you see that other than your own changeless being, variety is all there is. All things change around you. What incredible diversity awakened beings get to enjoy.
The brilliant Lao Tzu called this diversity the rising and falling of the 10,000 things.
The correct use of denial.
Humans foolishly protect themselves by refusing to know themselves.
You often chastise me for putting things in denial. Is there ever a positive side to denial?
Everything has a positive side, even denial. It can serve as a tool to filter out inappropriate thoughts. Without it, you couldn't have selective thinking. You would be bombarded by legions of chaotic thoughts. Without the filter of denial, all your thoughts would happen at once, and you would quite literally go mad. As long as you insist on being in linear time, denial can be a valuable place.
Does the ego just hijack denial so that it can have a place to hide? Is there anything that the ego doesn't hijack?
Since the ego is a shadow created by the light of truth, wherever goodness exists, ego is there to hijack it, as you say. But when that single thought of death is penetrated by the light of your own awareness, denial will have outlived its usefulness. All that is left then is to join in bliss with your Creator. This knowledge should make humans give enlightenment a very high priority.
I'm trying.
No need in trying to be what you already are. Your attachment to linear time is getting redundant. How much more must you suffer before you finally allow yourself just to be yourself?
Compassion plus self-awareness is majesty.
Wisdom, compassion, and courage, the moral standards of a true man. Confucius.
I'm still conflicted about where the self-realization of I am leaves off and love begins. How is it possible to be totally self-possessed and still unconditionally love others?
Majesty is the word you're looking for. This is the union of gratitude, power, courage, compassion, and wisdom. Awakening this regal attitude is the prime goal of humans. Most people have no idea of the nature of divine love. They confuse it with emotional addiction. Love is the recognition of the self in others, and more closely related to power than to emotional addiction.
I agree that self-realization is the goal of humans, but aren't other goals worthy of our labors too? What about helping others? What about the golden rule?
Self-acceptance is even more important than the golden rule. You will just naturally do unto others as you do unto yourself. When you no longer see through a glass darkly, you see others not as them, but as extensions of your own self.
Chapter 7. Gallows Humor. For those who take death way too seriously.
The most terrible fear is not war, not a disease, not cancer nor death. It is a person without humor. Quote by Jonathan Winters.
Laughing at death.
We are here to laugh at the odds and live our lives so well that death will tremble to take us. Charles Bukowski.
Why is it I still have trouble visualizing my death? All I see is me lying in a casket or a clump of ashes in a Grecian urn.
And that in itself is very funny. The truth is when you laugh at death, it sends the grim reaper running for cover. The devilish ego and its screeching crouchers love it when you cry and curse at them, but they can't stand being laughed at.
I enjoy making people laugh. Can it really be true that there's a central place for humor in this painful process?
Humor and pain play tug-of-war for your attention. Choose the former. True spiritual congeniality brings light into the saddest of moments, and it is greatly appreciated by all. Remember, Buddha laughs.
Did Jesus laugh?
Yes, but you'd never know it. The dark leaders of the church wanted to make sure you quaked in fear. Laughing is not acceptable, where fear is the device.
So even gallows humor is acceptable. You mean you finally won't slap me around for my sick jokes?
Humor is excellent, as long as it's not used as a way to keep from facing your denied terror and insecurities. In fact, in this case, your laughter neutralizes a whole legion of screeching crouchers. Joy and laughter is supremely important. It's called levity and lightheartedness for a reason. Laughter gives instant illumination and bypasses grave thinking before fear even has a chance to get its pants on.
So why do you chastise me sometimes for joking?
Everyone enjoys your humor, including me. I enjoy humor and jokes when they're fitting. Buffoonery for its own sake can be unproductive, however. As valuable as humor is, it is often used by the ego as a way of avoiding the discomfort of facing and releasing primal terror. But by all means, stand away from your ego and laugh at it. It won't hang around for long. It hates being the brunt of jokes.
Chapter 8. Prepare for Strange New Worlds.
There are so many strange worlds, and I have not yet conquered even one. Alexander the Great.
What is the first thing dying people see when they reach the other side?
New perceptions and new worlds start to appear as your engrams are released. This is true even in your current world. You asked about your friends. Some of them are finally given the pursuit of truth a higher priority. To the degree they're interested, they'll be rewarded with new experiences and wonder, just like you are. Their next phase of existence will be like someone who was blind from birth suddenly being given vision for the first time.
I heard once it was like seeing in black and white all of your life, then all of a sudden being able to see in color.
That is accurate, but it's far more profound than that. Your graduation into greater 4D existence is indescribable. It is the awakening of a hidden vision slumbering in the unused parts of your mind and heart. Many find this new truth so different and shocking in its beauty that the gift of greater vision must actually wait for some until they can bear it.
Can beauty really be unbearable? Really?
Well, not really, but the joy felt when you experience it can be.
I can't understand why more people aren't consumed by the quest for higher space. Many seem uninterested in anything deeper than TV soap operas.
Well, newborn babies have no interest in learning to navigate a car either. But the day will come when all humans will want driving lessons.
The Kingdom of Heaven, a preview.
The mind is its own place, and in itself can make heaven of hell and hell of heaven. Milton.
So then, heaven and hell are just states of mind.
Everything is a state of mind. Heaven is a state of intense love and beauty. As we discussed, it is a state of almost unbearable gratitude. This powerful state primes the pump and starts the ecstatic creative waters flowing into your being. More creativity than you ever thought imaginable.
The few times I was able to see through that bubble membrane, I saw some indescribable things. I've had anecdotal experiences. Whether they're real or just mental phantasms, I'm not sure. I'll have to leave that to you to decide. Personally, they seem more real to me than anything I ever experienced.
3 sobering personal experiences.
Once I found myself by a small stream in a beautiful meadow, and I was approached by what looked like a fantastically beautiful armadillo with emerald-like scales. It was a powerfully beautiful creature, and I loved it, and it totally loved me. It felt as close to me as any of my dear pets ever had. At another time, I was physically walking on an Oregon beach when I had a genuine out-of-body, fourth-dimensional experience. All of the rocks became precious rubies, diamonds, emeralds, and other priceless sparkling gems. It was a nostalgic, familiar, otherworldly experience. And yet another time, I had a similar event while awake. I was driving to Las Vegas and pulled off the road late at night to answer nature's call. Instantly, I saw what appeared to be a huge silver fire break out of the ground in front of me. It started burning up to the sky and disappeared into the heavens. Then the world started dripping in rainbows. This peek through the veil lasted for about 20 minutes. But whenever I share these stories, people stare at me from the corner of their eye.
You're fortunate to have an adventuresome spirit that allows these states to open up for you.
If it's all about gratitude, what would someone who doesn't believe in God or a higher power be grateful to?
They may be grateful to a flower or a puppy. Westerners have been told that God alone is worthy of gratitude, and this is true. But nowhere is God more present than in the simple experience of love and beauty. The joyous state that you call heaven isn't a place. It is the ecstasy of I am, which is the fullness of your own being in its natural state.
Sometimes that I am state seems so big that I could just pop like a balloon. Can't I just start with one of the more intermediate realms where angels live? You know, like with flying, interpenetrating love, and all those happy things?
Those are fine as long as you know that an oasis like this is not the fullness of I am. There are many temporary paradises on your journey to complete self-awareness. Your ultimate home is beyond all shapes and forms. You may enjoy all the spokes of the wheel of creation as long as you don't lose sight of the hub.
Which takes us back to the nirvana of Buddha again. Didn't Jesus say, "In my Father's house are many mansions"?
Yes, and those mansions are incredibly beautiful and filled with love and light and many shining beings. You may vacation there, but just don't abandon the primal stillness of what you are at your very core. Then you may be free to enjoy all the realms eternally. Eventually, even those will prove unable to compete with the bliss of the formlessness of your central place, which is God's isness.
That nirvana void thing has never sounded appealing to me. Complete stillness even sounds boring.
What do you think the Bible means by, "In the beginning the world was without form and void"?
There was no life at the very beginning, just stillness, right?
I've been trying to show you nothing else. The absolute center of creation is perfectly still. Like the exact mathematical center of a spinning wheel is also perfectly still. It has the potential of movement, but no animated life in and of itself. This is your home base.
I see, like voltage is the potential of electricity, but has no movement like amperage does.
Yes, good analogy.
The gift of flight.
Expand yourself until you fill the sky, and that is how you learn to fly. Can't you recall your silver wings?
You have equated human egos with earthbound insects.
Since flying is an accepted mode of travel in your next phase of existence, the comparison with cockroaches scurrying around looking for crumbs is not that much of a stretch. Comparing your ego with your larger self is like comparing a candle to the sun. So it's helpful to contemplate expansions and the freedoms that you will enjoy in your next world.
I thought you said flying was too slow in that world.
It's too slow for me, but not for you. A baby must first learn to be born, then learn to crawl, before it can master the skill of walking, not to mention flying.
Can't you remember when you heard the skybird sing?
Along with your practice of dying, I also recommend the practice of flying. Imagine expanding yourself and navigating a new territory as an etheric entity. Remember, flight in your next realm is the main way of travel. Those dreams are previews of the skills that you enjoyed and will enjoy again when you're back in your lighter body. Look forward to the transition with a sense of adventure rather than the terrified desire for earthbound security. Then the word liberating will be inadequate to describe the wonderful release you will experience.
We humans are really addicted to the physical world, aren't we?
A child is always attached to his mother until he has visions of his independence. Eventually, you'll find that sinking down into the damp grave of security is no longer a promising future. You will want to fly. Insecurity is heavy. It's related to gravity.
Gravity.
That's right.
Chapter 9. Helpful Cosmic Laws.
In the mind, there are no limits. Where two or more minds are in agreement, what they believe to be true either is true or will become true. A quote by John C. Lilly. Truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, "Move from here to there," and it will move. Nothing will be impossible to you. A quote by Jesus.
You say all sense of loss is unfounded. It's quite real for those left behind. For me, it's not just the loss of loved ones, but that all we have to look forward to is old age, suffering, and death. It's not really a very promising future.
This is more of the same illusion. While physical disintegration seems ever more apparent as life progresses, new doors of awareness and love arise as physical life seems to recede.
This is where the term golden years comes from, I suppose.
Regardless of the vicissitudes of old age, eyes that are open see life getting ever more joyful as it progresses.
In other words, the joy of wisdom trumps physical and emotional pain that accompanies old age usually.
Yes, it's the law of compensation.
The law of compensation.
For every treasure taken from the body, a greater one is returned to the mind. For every treasure taken from the mind, a greater one is given to the soul.
I would imagine that being compensated for loss would require at least a little willingness to grow toward love, light, and truth.
That goes without saying. You don't want to resist the process of love. A greater degree of love is just one of the returns from the law of compensation. Greater peace is another gift, and so is faith, to say nothing of abundance and knowledge. Ultimately, you will see that not only is death compensated for, but so is physical and emotional pain as well.
Well, everything does seem to be falling apart. Entropy is simple physics, no?
Only on a superficial level. The laws of physics demonstrate that energy cannot be destroyed, only changed. Since consciousness is nothing but organized energy, it cannot be destroyed either. Energy, like water, can be changed in appearance, but its essence is still the same. It is the loss of familiarity that humans fear.
Some would say that's just unrealistic Pollyanna thinking.
They are mistaken. Positivity is not a matter of fooling yourself or glossing over. It is creative thinking. Positive reality is so simple it can't be grasped by the mind. Blissful isness seems too boring for those who think truth may be found only in complexity. The guides are constantly being challenged to find positive new ways to herd the human flock back up the mountain, since they're so intimidated by the climb. Most people think about what they don't want and wonder why it shows up over and over again. A quote by John Osseroff.
The law of attraction.
What could this dense world possibly have to make me want to stay here, except for my loved ones? It's beautiful, but it's nothing to write home about.
There's no reason to write home about anything. Why not just go home, now?
And how does this relate to the law of attraction?
The law of attraction simply attracts to you what your mind and emotions embrace, both what you want and what you hate.
Well, what I want is easy. I want to go home and be with my Creator.
Your love of adventure attracts you toward your home, but your fear and guilt attracts you to the dense underworld. You're conflicted. Remember that fear is what made you fall from the angelic realms in the first place.
I hate fear, and I suppose you're going to tell me my hatred of it is what attracts it.
It is true that you attract what you hate, but you also have hidden anxieties that pull you into the pool of terror in your dark places. Remember, fear is creative. Learning to shine light into the catacombs of this buried dis-ease is your goal.
The law of action and reaction, karma.
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Sir Isaac Newton.
You told me that all is karma. That would make karma the most important law there is, wouldn't it?
Other than basic compassion, the knowledge of karmic return is the wisest reason to follow the golden rule.
What I put out is what I get back. Pretty simple.
Too simple for most.
The law of fluidity, the river of life.
Mist to mist, drops to drops. For water thou art, and unto water shalt thou return. Kaban Kajuri.
If heaven and hell are states of mind, that would mean poverty and wealth are states of mind too, wouldn't it?
Yes, and so are heaven and hell. Your mind is creative, and whatever you expect affects what you receive. There are two ways of observing the river of life as it flows by you. You can either mourn those obsolete things drifting away, or you can look upstream and gratefully accept those new treasures flowing toward you. I recommend the latter.
Time for grateful expectancy.
What could be simpler than grateful expectancy? It's the most appropriate in all cases. Humans have the option of seeing either their losses or their bounty. It's impossible to see both.
So each moment we're called upon to choose between gratitude or grievance.
And never the twain shall meet. The type of death you have depends upon what choices you're accustomed to making. When you pass over, many of the views that you hold most likely will follow you to the other side, where they're even amplified.
So in essence, at the end, Judgment Day is when we judge ourselves by the thoughts and feelings we've grown into the habit of choosing for ourselves.
Well said. The only Judgment Day is made by you, not God or anybody else. In truth, it is you judging yourself for not being yourself. As you judge your life in turn judges you in the same spirit with which you judged it.
On this plane, then, everything that happens to someone can eventually be seen as reflective karma.
Chapter 10. Decisions, Decisions.
Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. A quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Mercy versus discernment. Heart versus mind.
Everyone understands the need to flow with the fluidity of life, but what about thinkers like Emerson who said your goodness must have an edge to it?
A lake has edges to it. Without banks to contain it, the lake would dissolve into the boundless and evaporate.
That explains it perfectly. I suppose I'm just tired of this Earth experience and ready to flow home.
Good choice, but it'll never happen if you lack gratitude. Parts of you are ready for home and other parts are not. The law of attraction has you locked into a push-pull reality. Parts of you are still attracted to dark forces of self-doubt. When you've suffered enough, you'll release them and trust the process.
So I haven't suffered enough already, huh?
Suffering is a choice, so stop it already.
Modesty versus self-acceptance.
False modesty is worse than arrogance. A quote by David Mitchell.
We're told that modesty and humility are extremely important if we're to connect with our source, yet you insist that we stand in majesty and say, I am. How do you explain the different ideas between self-acceptance and modesty?
Self-acceptance is not merely an idea. It's accepting what you already are as you were created. Secondly, you're not urged to just say I am, but have the courage to be that I am presence. This is not arrogance, it's you. Only your ego needs to be lowly and humble, not your sacred sovereign self. Just fully expand and decompress into your I am so you can be you, instead of a mere shadow of you.
I can hear it now. The fundamentalist would say that is, well, selfish.
Your religious programming is wrong. Did you receive what I just said? Compared to what you really are, your ego truly is selfish. Awakening to your God self is the single reason that you exist. How else can you accomplish your function as a wizard of harmony unless you embrace your divine creative abilities?
I know, my whole life I've been trying to deprogram from that early fundamentalist religious teaching.
Your early religious teachings aren't wholly bad. They have some good things that you should consider before totally discarding them.
And what would those be?
Thy will be done is the best one. By relying on the will of your expanded God self, rather than that tiny shadow self that you have come to think that you are, you release the devil from its misguided mission of trying to improve you. Ego is not capable of improving anything, especially that which has already been created perfectly, like yourself.
So then modesty obviously isn't the same as the self-doubt that we talked about earlier.
Self-doubt is a major hindrance to awakening. It creates an inner dissonance that makes one roll over and hit the snooze button instead of waking up. Self-doubt always invites sleep.
Why do all the religions seem to condemn self-confidence?
Because they haven't learned to distinguish the ego self from their true God self. Like the previous exercise of looking at yourself between two mirrors, the smaller your head is, the more of your infinity you can see. Only the ego should be made smaller in order for the larger self to stand forth in its native majesty.
So once again, it's practicing the presence.
Truly, Their presence cannot be eclipsed by the ego any more than a cloud can put out the sun. Your belief in the past is but a shadow created by ego. Your insistence on preserving the past out of guilt or some misguided sense of loyalty creates death to be your only escape from this error.
Love versus emotional attachment.
Loneliness is something that I fear. Like all of my friends my age are dropping like flies.
You came in alone, and you must prepare to leave alone. Not only do your old friends leave, but those who still live will slowly withdraw from you until you do leave. This is part of the plan.
When I walk with you, when I walk with you, I don't need no preacher man trying to sell salvation's plan. I just want to hold your hand when I walk with you.
It does sort of seem like we're being forced to individualize, but it is painful.
Being born is often painful, so becoming your sacred sovereign self should now be your main focus. It requires giving up what is lower, which is addictive emotional relationships, in favor of higher divine relationships.
The I Ching says the superior man gives up what is near in order to gain what is afar. But it's hard. What is near is familiar, and what is afar is not.
There it is, the incessant fear of change we've been discussing.
Freedom versus security.
Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Helen Keller.
When time comes for facing the birth into the next life, what's better to ask for, freedom or security?
You believe you have to choose between freedom and security, but they're just two sides of the same coin. Both are your ultimate and very satisfying destiny, but you must accept them in their proper order.
I think I understand that. If you're truly free, you're also free of insecurity. If you're truly secure, you can then be as free as you want to be. I like that. But there's one thing I don't fully understand. On one hand, we're told the truth will set you free, but on the other, the truth hurts. Which is it?
The truth will set you free, and the truth hurts, but it only hurts when resisted. The truth shall set you free is far more than just a handy quote. It is the promise of freedom from the highest realms. For those who truly seek to understand, freedom becomes not only an art to be perfected, but the most exciting human adventure possible.
Does that mean that freedom should always be the first choice? That whole death is an adventure thing is kind of hard for me to grasp.
It's really quite simple. Choose freedom first, and you gain both freedom and security. Choose security first, and you gain neither.
I can see why you say to choose freedom first. We desire security first only if we're really afraid. And we don't want fear to make our choices for us.
There's not lots of us. There's just one of us. Different parts of us, seeking all of us, but then if you must, I will say to us, I love you, I feel you, I want you to be you, that God could bring eternal spring. Oh, yeah.
Only fear can make someone choose security first. It is crucial to understand that if you refuse to freely flow with the constantly moving currents in the river of life and insist on clinging to the shore of stability, the shadow of death will hunt you mercilessly. Regardless of where you go after this world, you'll face a destiny almost as dense and frozen as your present one. Develop that sense of grateful expectancy. Then every change becomes an adventure.
And that's because, as you say, fear is creative and always creates the thing feared.
Humanity's desire for safety and security has created a world where you need things like traffic lights in order to keep from crashing into each other. In the finer realms, where love rules, your bodies are not hard and dense. In fact, when etheric beings love each other, they actually interpenetrate and pass through each other, like clouds, instead of clumsily banging and bumping bodies against each other, trying to unite.
You mean love does not fully penetrate when we're in bodies, but out-of-body love interpenetrates. So there is no membrane or boundary separating us on the other side.
That's right, yet each of you still retains your own individuality. It's the essence of harmony, much like musical notes can unite to make up a single chord. But in your physical world of bodies, this is impossible. Love and light can't penetrate the density. That's why you cast a shadow. The best thing you can do is cuddle and hope for a little interpenetration of your peripheral auras.
I suppose solid things like religious dogma also cast shadows.
All hard and dense things do. Melting those frozen forms you built out of the desire for security will guarantee your liberation. Learning to happily surf new liquid waves of change will allow you to recognize your own mortality. Once that happens, you will see that there is no such thing as death, but only change.
That's probably why Taoists say that we should be like water. This stuff is challenging, but it sure is interesting. That's probably why you keep saying approaching change from the vantage point of fluidity will actually conquer death.
Well, to begin with, death can't be conquered because there's nothing there to conquer in the first place. What I said was, those who inhabit the stillness of their own selves can flow in and out of situations and won't experience death, even if they appear to die by those on the outside.
I like that. Ultimately, the experience of death is just a misdirected viewpoint.
That's why we call it a dearth instead. Death is a hardened, distorted perception, along with everything else in your existence. True spiritual adventurers see death as merely another dynamic change to be explored. It is a joy to behold life as an eternal sequence of awakenings, going from one wholly beautiful and unique room into another, exploring the many mansions of wonderful awareness. This joyous perception is available to anyone willing to clean out their dark nether world of stubborn denial.
Chapter 11, A New Look at Old Religion.
The precious dear grace of the hour I first believed. Oh, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost.
Why do you always use so many Bible quotes?
In the West, you relate to Judeo-Christian morals because they've defined your social interaction. Seekers in the East use different but equally effective spiritual software.
Most religions are founded on the Golden Rule, though, right?
All religions originate from this divine inspiration, but that is where much of their dedication to truth seems to end. Frozen dogma has replaced the desire to reconnect with God. This isolation has cost humans their most prized gifts, which are joy and perfect peace profound. These are especially valuable gifts to have at the end of your time on earth.
The Bible, fact or fable?
I have mixed feelings about the Bible. On one hand, it is an interesting history and moral guide, but on the other, it sends me back to my experiences with fundamentalist Christians, which are totally driven by fear.
The first thing to know is that God is now. The presence is in the present, not thousands of years ago, nor in the future. Your hangover of fear and guilt comes from humanity's binge on religious fundamentalism for thousands of years.
I know, I hate that dogmatic bumper sticker that shouts, "The Bible said it, I believe it, that settles it."
That phrase was written by a very young soul who has just found religion. But you can't judge a toddler because he is not yet ready to go to college.
So, is the Bible true or not?
The Bible is a treasure, not only historically, but as a moral guide. It has helped keep Western humanity from killing each other off for 3,500 years. Yes, it's largely myth, particularly the Old Testament, but myth often reveals truth better than direct explanations.
Well, even fairy tales can do that, can't they?
Fairy tales are prime examples of reality being captured by other means than direct instructions. Truth can't be described using words, but myth can point to it in a wonderful, magical way. Children are closer to the truth than adults. That's why they love fairy tales so much.
So why then do you give me instructions directly?
Because you're a seeker and you can handle them.
Well, I do find your instructions more accessible than many of the tales in the Bible, like Noah's Ark and Jonah living in the belly of a fish for 3 days.
Don't be too quick to dispose of these Bible myths. The creation myth in Genesis was a treasure for those living in Moses' time. They were tribal and perhaps closer to cavemen than you moderns are, with your developed cerebral cortex.
Christ brought a consciousness upgrade to these primitives, didn't he?
Christ came when people were finally starting to get a glimpse of the very indescribable principle of love. The love of Christ was a welcome upgrade, which overrode the intimidating laws of the prophets.
Well, I'm glad we're starting to finally awaken after so many eons of darkness.
Keep in mind that those many eons are happening right now, in this eternal moment. Humans fell from heaven because they allowed fear to drive them from the presence of now. This is humanity's first and only mistake. When you wake up, you'll no longer believe in a future that is going to punish you for your sins that you think you committed in the past. You'll return to the omnipresence of now and be liberated. Then you will soar through many realms more effectively than eagles.
So this nowness really is what the presence of God is all about, isn't it?
Truly, your higher I Am presence is what you call God. You have yet to realize that God is simply you when you're completed in the distant future.
God is me in the future. Can't I accept that fullness now?
You can, and parts of you already do. Your true presence is a brilliant light that you could embrace fully if you were totally aware of it. But you're distracted by a shadow which seems to eclipse it.
And that shadow, of course, is cast by my ego.
Again, you can call it ego if you like. It is also that mythical humanoid that some call the devil. What makes things worse is that humans believe this shadow of ego is as powerful as the light. You think it's even strong enough to extinguish the light. Rest assured that these shadows don't have the power to extinguish anything. They merely provide a dark hiding place in which the piggish, isolated ego can preen itself. All problems disappear when the full awareness of the sacred sovereign self dawns upon you.
Okay, then back to this. Why do I need the Bible when it often seems so patently false?
Look at it as poetry or art. Besides, as one who loves panning for gold, isn't the reward worth the trouble it takes to wash away the black sand?
Point taken. I've often even looked at the Catholic Church as a museum of sorts. Peace of mind at the end of life must be impossible for anyone who accepts the Bible's myth that humans are evil sinners that could only be saved by some guy who lived 2,000 years ago.
The mythical fall of man.
The fall of man is a metaphysical allegory with profound implications for those with the courage to look into the meaning behind it. Genesis is particularly illuminating when understood correctly.
Milton's famous poem Paradise Lost seems to blame the fall on women. That would never fly with today's feminists.
Nor should it. Many misinterpret the allegory of Eden. Eve tempting Adam with the forbidden fruit is simply a tale of how man lost touch with truth when he started following emotion instead of reason. Reason should always guide emotion, regardless of one's physical gender.
So how did Adam err by caving to Eve's desire for him to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil?
Evil isn't mental. Evil exists only in the emotional body. When you allow yourself to be guided solely by emotion instead of reason, the shadows of pain and fear cast by the ego arise.
What makes women mad today is the Bible saying that men should be the head of the family. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, the masculine should be the head of the family, as the feminine should be the heart. Again, this simply means that the masculine principle of mind should rule the heart, which is guided by emotions. This is true not just for the family unit, but for every single person regardless of physical gender. Understanding this hierarchy is especially valuable when passing through the veil.
So then it seems to me that the Bible stories and myths were metaphors for spiritual principles not yet able to be understood.
Truly, these myths were treasures meant for those living in Moses' time. The ancient Hebrews were quite intellectually primitive compared to today's humans who have more evolved ways of capturing awareness.
Why does the idea of the fall of man make humans feel guilty? It's like we're expecting some giant thumb to come out of the sky and squash us.
Humanity's fall doesn't mean that you're evil. It means that you fell asleep and dreamed that you were in hell, and are afraid to wake up. That's why I'm here, to stir you awake from this nightmare.
So until we do wake up, we get to suffer, right?
Well, that's true of all nightmares, isn't it? This biblical myth of original sin is a metaphor for how humanity created a spiritual short circuit by opposing the natural hierarchy of creation. In just one micro-instant, you believed in the shadow of fear, and you allowed it to enter your consciousness. This is also covered by the myth of Lucifer falling from heaven to earth like a bolt of lightning.
Okay, one last gender question and I'll drop it. Why do we refer to God as he instead of a she?
Because God likes men better than women, of course.
Very funny.
All jesting aside, nowhere does your source refer to itself as male. Humans did that. God is a she as much as a he. Your source encompasses both genders.
In heaven, there is neither marriage nor given in marriage. If our Creator in heaven is beyond gender, why do we start the traditional prayer with, Our Father?
It does benefit you to prayerfully approach the Father. The Father principle, which is universal mind, designs the blueprints for all created things. When you call to Him, He forms the cup, which is filled by the emotion of the mother principle, so your desires may be satisfied.
So mind is to be consulted first before emotion. Where does will enter the picture?
Will transcends them both. Will is the original impulse of the I am. It is the primal will to be. The point here is that you should always consult the blueprints of reason before doing anything. Thoughts are like ice cube trays that give shape to the emotions, which give those thoughts creative power.
I get it. When emotions fill our carefully chosen thought patterns, they add the power to our creativity.
Emotions are power. They are emotions, or energy in motion. They are the wind that is meant to fill your thoughtfully trimmed sails of imagination. Unguided emotions are explosive and can blow your ship off course, just like it blew you out of heaven.
Rising apes or fallen angels.
We acknowledge that man, with all his noble qualities, still bears in his bodily frame the indelible stamp of his lowly origin. Charles Darwin. To be human is to be in a place where the fallen angel meets the rising ape. Terry Pratchett.
So how did humans get to the Earth in the first place?
Originally, you fell into the illusion of linear time, which suffers from beginnings and endings. Higher space-time doesn't have beginnings and endings. Everything just is, and it always has been.
I can understand how humans made a mistake and fell to Earth. Why do we continue to stay here?
You don't want to leave your dreams. Not fully. That's why you're asking me to help you wake up.
Please do. I was cursed with a preview of my next existence, and I'm no longer happy inhabiting this heavy animal body.
Nobody ever said that being a god monkey would be comfortable.
Do you call us god monkeys because we're part animal and part gods?
In a way, that is true, because in your illusion of linear time, evolution holds sway. In this view, you're a rising ape, evolving toward godhood. You retain remnants from the animal kingdom, which is a residual mammal fight-or-flight impulse. But from my side of the veil, humans are fallen angels that dropped into your sphere because they trusted the shadows more than the light. Both perspectives are right.
I find it disquieting that I would consciously reject the light.
What happens in your world when you turn your back on the sun? You see your shadow in front of you. Those who choose to face the brilliance of their own higher selves won't even be aware of their shadows, let alone choose to hang out with them. What did Jesus say when he was confronted by his shadow in the wilderness?
Get thou behind me.
Those who consistently reject the light will appear even farther down the scale of evolution and appear in the realm of apes and monkeys. Some even fall as far as pigs if they reject the light intensely enough.
Man, some of us must have really screwed up to end up rooting around in the muck with pigs.
Some fall even farther than that, but none are victims. You can take comfort in knowing that everyone attracts only that environment which they choose to be in.
Like the Moody Blues song, just what you want to be, you'll be in the end. That is comforting.
Exactly. Nothing happens to anyone that they don't want, either consciously or subconsciously.
Reconsidering God.
We are a mirror of being. We are God in miniature. Friedrich Nietzsche.
You don't seem to call our source God very often. If I don't call him God, what should I call him?
God doesn't care what it is called. Goodness doesn't mind what name you give to it. It is simply the highest vibratory state of your own self. God is your once and future self, like we discussed. And that self is totally accessible in this very moment for the adventurous.
God is my once and future self. That always confuses me.
That's what Jesus meant when he called himself the Son of Man. He was trying to get his followers to understand that he was them in the future.
The Son of Man. Jesus is humanity in the future?
Yes, and since time doesn't exist, what does that make you? Try the following focus exercise. It helps give you a God's eye view.
Exercise. Seeing as God sees.
Try this. Respectfully turn your gaze inward to your source, and also outward into space, and ask the heavens, what am I, and what will I be once I'm awakened? Continue to ask, and the answer will soon come from your Creator by way of your guide.
Okay, I'm game. Now I'm asking, what am I, and what will I be once I'm awakened? I'd really like to know.
The answer, of course, is always the same. You are love and you are light. You are infinite strength and compassion, adorned with eyes in the back of your head.
Eyes in the back of my head?
When you're fully conscious, yourself is an infinitely caring sphere of omni-awareness. Contrary to physical appearances, you're not limited by two little eyes and a flat little face restricted only to a 180-degree view of your world. You have 360-degree surround vision, and you're no longer limited by the simple two-dimensional disk of shallow self-interest that has kept you imprisoned in a flat world for eons.
This exercise actually does bring up familiar déjà vu feelings.
Prepare. These wonderful familiar feelings are just beginning.
Chapter 12. The Main Illusions of Obstruction.
Love is what we were born with. Fear is what we have learned. Marianne Williamson. The number one illusion is fear. F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real.
Fear of death really is the big one, isn't it? Poor humans seem beset with so many terrors, anxieties, and fears.
The fact that they think they have so many fears is one of the problems. The root of all fears is a single fear, the fear of death or non-existence.
Well, I'm talking about the fear of losing a loved one or not having enough money, terrorists, geopolitics, or poor health, etc. It seems like there's an abundance of different kinds of fear that people simply can't control.
That sneaky guy behind the curtain uses this legion of masks to keep you distracted from the light of your higher self. All fears are rooted in that one single fear, and that's the fear of change. And what better encapsulates the fear of change than the neatly wrapped package called death?
I really do like that you call it a dearth.
The fear of losing a loved one, or not having enough money, or terrorists, etc., are all just puppets dancing on the strings of the dark puppet master called death, lurking in the dungeons of your own subconscious.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil.
You will eventually see that the shadow of death isn't evil. It is simply nothing, just like all shadows are.
You said once that on the sun there are no shadows. Since you often compare consciousness with the sun, does that also mean that consciousness casts no shadows?
There are no shadows on the sun, and there is no shadow in total consciousness. It is only when the ego pulls away from the sun of yourself that shadows are cast. Don't trust anything that blocks the brilliance of your own higher self, the light of your being.
Well, I'm thankful that shadows have no real power of their own.
They only have power to the extent you stupidly react to them. But in themselves, shadows have no power. If they did, creation could never have happened in the first place, and life would have been smothered in its crib.
It really is stupid when even the thought of facing the light is frightening.
Well, you can always wait until you die to be free. Death is freedom, after all, albeit a backdoor entrance.
I don't know anybody who's fully dedicated to their awakening.
That's too bad for them. There are more comfortable options than sleeping in terror. Joy and peace are directly proportional to the simple desire to know the truth.
That leaves most people out. Virtually everybody I know is afraid of the truth, really.
Yes, and virtually everybody suffers and dies. Gratitude is its own reward, but fear is its own punishment. Most humans choose death because they're not willing to progress by any other means.
A story of fear released.
There once was a Taoist master named Kuang Shi. He had a student who was deathly afraid of drowning. He coaxed his student into a small boat and rowed out into the middle of the pond, where he then pushed him in. The student cried and thrashed around screaming, "I can't swim, master! Help me, master!" Quan Chi just laughed and laughed. Finally, totally exhausted, the student could tread water no more. He finally accepted his fate and let go and started to sink. That is when his feet touched the bottom of the pond and his face was still out of the water. At that moment, he was enlightened and never feared drowning again. This is a hint of how dying people finally release their fear of death.
This story helped me a lot. So the moral of the story is that fear, like shadows, is totally illusionary, and when once faced, it retreats back into its native nothingness.
Pain.
Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. Khalil Gibran.
What is physical pain? It must be more than simply nerves electrifying the brain.
Ultimately, pain is crystallized fear. It is hardened terror that has taken up residence in your cells. Your cells and organs contract into density just like you do. You experience this crystallized cellular fear as bodily pain.
The cells in my body are afraid? That's strange. What in the world can be done about that? How can anybody keep their bodily cells from contracting in fear?
You and your body are made of light, but your fearful emotions create a black hole that sucks part of yourself down into the condensed object that you know of as your physical body.
You mean how, like gravity eventually compresses sand into rocks?
Exactly. As you said, the word grave comes from gravity. Gravity compresses sand much the same way as grave thoughts and emotions compress light into physical matter.
My mother used to tell me never to get into a rut because a rut is just a grave with both ends knocked out.
That's very clever. A good analogy is how water condenses into ice. You contract and hug yourself when you get cold. Primal terror sends chills up your spine and also compresses and crystallizes the spaces between your molecules until they appear solid.
Transcending pain.
Regardless of the cause of pain, how can we deal with it and return to comfort?
Physical pain is easier to transcend than emotional pain. When you stub your toe, notice there's a delay before your brain gets the message. This is because the nerves are an electrical network designed to keep you from hurting yourself. The next time you experience physical pain, try this. Pull up into your sacred sovereign self and say, I'm observing an electrical impulse between my nerves and my brain. I feel bad for my cells that are distressed, and I will do what I can to bring them comfort. But I don't feel pain in this transcendent state of observation.
Well, I'll practice it and get back to you with the results.
It requires practice.
You mean like getting to Carnegie Hall?
I think I'll just let that one pass.
But it is funny.
Regret.
You may regret the pain caused or time not spent with a loved one, but you have all eternity to make it right and to get to know each other.
Regret seems to be a major negative burden, not only for the dying, but for the elderly too. How can that be addressed?
Those who cling to their guilt and regrets are among the saddest humans on earth. They look back at the pain they caused others and refuse to forgive themselves. They use the agony of regret as a way of punishing themselves.
You mean like the Shiites in Iran who beat themselves on their back until they're bloody with metal whips? Never understood that.
The regretful expect something from themselves that they weren't capable of giving at the time.
I know I've played in many nursing homes, and that kind of regret really is an issue with many of those who live there.
The elderly often have a large deposit in their remorse bank.
Well, there's a legitimate time for regret, though, sometimes, isn't there?
It is meant to create an instant course correction rather than a permanent weight upon your consciousness. You are created innocent, and all teachings to the contrary are ego-based and an insult to God's creative ability.
So how can we permanently deal with the specter of past mistakes like that?
Everyone needs to understand that if they simply desire to grow toward goodness, mistakes become impossible. You will always do the best you can with whatever level of understanding you have attained. If people had true compassion, which is simply the ability to see themselves and others, they could never make a mistake. But those who still sleep are not aware of this instant salvation.
So you're talking about self-forgiveness then?
Forgive yourself first. Only then will you have the ability to forgive others. This must happen first for a smooth and joyful transition.
I would imagine self-forgiveness is sometimes even harder than dealing with physical pain.
Sometimes it is, but it is even more important to do it because guilt and regret affect the subtle spiritual nature. There's only one sane solution. Forgive yourself and try not to repeat the mistake.
Circular thinking.
Surely you've heard people say, my particular religion is the only truth, because my religion says so.
You spoke earlier of how humans are addicted to a two-dimensional flatland kind of existence and cannot yet comprehend the depth and freedom offered by the next higher dimension with its added vertical qualities.
Once you understand the flat two-dimensional nature of your earthbound thought processes, the gates of consciousness will open for you, and you'll begin to get glimpses of your ascending spiral path back home.
Well, hopefully we're starting to awaken to this higher dimensional point of view now.
Multidimensional awakening is dawning on humanity's fledgling mind. There are orchestras of cosmic musicians and choirs of invisible muses singing new waves of consciousness into your existence. These vibrations herald the end of fear cycles for any willing to sing along. But music and poetry are beyond the scope of this interview. We're dealing conceptually here.
Okay, well, if it's possible to articulate, what would you say it takes to return to these higher dimensional perceptions?
Most humans are trapped in a vicious cycle of self-perpetuating fear thoughts that have locked them into a flat 2D mindset of denial. Those who are used to going around and around in their flat way of thinking cannot comprehend the freedom of the route that ascends up and out of that psychological trap.
Well, I'll be glad when humanity finally wakes up, me included.
If you were awake, you would see that it had already happened. You're just addicted to the thought that it hasn't happened yet. That way the ego can keep you trapped in the future instead of allowing you to be free in the now.
Let's get this straight. If I was awake, I would see that I was already awake? That's hilarious.
That's just an example of the circular thinking that I'm talking about.
Wow. Okay, I think I got a glimpse of what you mean. Humanity fell asleep, dreamt it was sleeping, and now we're hiding in a dream. That's mind-boggling.
Don't worry, I'll keep reminding you of things. After all, it has only been a few hundred years since you believed your world was flat.
Okay, don't rub it in.
You awakened to find that the world was not only not flat, but a sphere. Now you're waking to find that it's not only not a sphere, but a hypersphere. Eventually, you'll awaken to find that it's not only not a hypersphere, but
Okay, I got it.
Let's just leave it at this. You embrace circular thinking that creates boundaries that imprison your consciousness. This cyclical redundancy is now finally breaking up due to your awakening, as slow as it is.
How will we know when we're close to getting it? What are some examples of these circular fear thoughts?
Examples of circular thinking.
Here is a progression of typical cyclical fear thoughts that some find themselves trapped in. Aha! Reason tells me that the devil doesn't exist. I now see that I'm not a victim of external forces. How liberating. Maybe the devil really does exist, but is just trying to distract me into believing otherwise so he can trick me. I must believe in the devil or I'll go to hell. Then circle back to thought number 1. Here's an even larger example of circular reasoning. Number 1, you evolve from bondage to freedom. Freedom brings awakened spiritual sight. Spiritual sight brings courage. Courage enables risk. Risk brings abundance. Abundance brings complacency. Complacency leads to apathy. Apathy leads to dependency. And dependency takes you back again to bondage.
Piercing the ring past knot barrier.
The ring past knot membrane is the highest point that your present consciousness can go. Seeing your next world depends upon penetrating that membrane.
Many occultists are always talking about that ring past knot. What do you have to say about that?
The ring past knot is a fear membrane that keeps you from breaking free of your circular thinking. Accessing your next dimension is not unlike an eggshell that must be penetrated from the inside in order for the new life form to emerge.
The Theosophist Dictionary calls the ring past knot a circle or boundary that contains a defined pool of consciousness.
That is well said. This also defines the barriers between all the worlds. You sense these higher dimensions exist, but you don't know how to face your fear yet in order to pierce the membrane.
What are examples of familiar rings past not?
One example may be a woman just prior to giving birth. When she goes into labor, the baby breaks the water membrane, preparing for entry into the larger world.
I suppose this is also the membrane that keeps my limited perception from entering your larger world.
It is the barrier that also prevents you from learning to fly, think yourself places, or enjoying any of the other gifts of higher space.
I love the idea of flying, so I'm determined to do it.
Ask and you shall receive. You have a good reason to celebrate. Your motivation is helping your dreams of freedom to be swiftly fulfilled.
Well, I'd better hurry. I'm not getting any younger.
You do understand that only the needle of gratitude can pierce the membrane that separates you from my world.
Well, how can you be grateful for something you're not even aware of yet?
In a word, that's called faith. Just keep practicing and asking until it becomes second nature. Then you'll be ushered into the next world at the appropriate time, like a baby coming due in the mother's womb.
Penetrating with the needle of gratitude. I like that.
Certainly you're learning to see through that delicate film and get glimpses of the wonders that await. This is motivating you to break through the limitations of that ring past knot.
Well, the thought of flying and thinking myself places really is exciting.
How about embracing peace instead of excitement?
The dweller on the threshold.
The foreboding sign above the door. Abandon hope, all ye who enter herein. Terrified, he pushes forth to meet and stare down his evil twin.
People can only handle so much terror. Will humanity ever break this curse and know the profound peace that you speak of?
Yes, when humans tire of suffering, they'll drop into the arms of their loving Creator like a ripe apple from a tree.
It does seem that fear may be reaching a zenith. I mean, how much more fear can humanity stand?
Humanity is starting to slowly awaken. But as I said, before this awakening is complete, each is called to make peace with the hidden parts of oneself they have judged as evil. This dark doppelganger contains all the terror and anxieties one has buried and not processed earlier in life. This can be a real challenge for those not up to the adventure.
You say facing this fear is actually easier on one's deathbed.
It is easier, because those who are dying have no choice. Not only is it easier, it's automatic during the acceptance phase, which we'll cover later. It's much smoother if peace is accepted before being forced onto one's deathbed.
Facing the dweller on the threshold, that's a scary thought.
This is the infamous evil twin that every human has banished to the subconscious nether regions. He's the last foe you will face before being catapulted directly into the heavenly realms.
I read about the dweller on the threshold from Bulwer Lytton's famous Zanoni book. It chilled me to the bone.
Well, it is only a shadow, but that is easily forgotten when you see his strikingly inelegant face.
Well, I can't wait. Not really.
There's no need to wait. Why not face and integrate him now? This is that point where many are called but few are chosen. The possibility of facing the fullness of one's own shadow is so terrifying to the unprepared that they push it down into denial and put it off for another day. It would be better if they developed courage to face it early and with full awareness.
Was the dweller what Jesus faced when he fasted 40 days in the wilderness?
Yes, one and the same.
Fires of perdition.
And I say unto you, resist ye not evil. Jesus.
So the fire of hell is also just a state of mind, right?
Yes, it is. Hellfire is a word created by humans to explain the results of unchecked emotion. Hell is as important to contemplate as heaven is. It's necessary to understand how the fires of rage are ignited.
Well, you would think that the fear of hell would actually damp down the fires of rage.
Hell is where most humans already reside, and that will continue until they face and release their terror. Heaven is the natural home of those who have let go of those negative emotional charges that generate so much resistance and spiritual heat.
5 ways to break the fear-fire cycle.
Since fear creates resistance, simply release the fear if possible. This is the easiest and preferred method. Next, if you can't release the fear, then at least don't resist it as it flows through you. Just let it out the front door. 3. Friction creates heat, so don't let others rub you the wrong way. Simply forgive. 4. When the heat starts to flame up, breathe deeply. Let your breath and prana cool the rage before it ignites. Finally, if left unchecked, fire circles back and creates even more fear forever. This is what hell is.
Of course, there's a place for fire. Fire isn't bad, nor does it create suffering if it's managed. Isn't that correct?
If it is managed, it brings warmth and comfort. Most humans still don't know how to manage it, however. Expanded beings can pass through fire and become one with it without contracting into resistance and getting burned.
India is full of saints and sadhus who don't get burned. I even walked through fire a few years ago. I always thought that hell was just a fiery idea created by religious fanatics to frighten and manipulate their followers.
Well, that is true too. Most humans still feel the need to control and be controlled. But as long as the light of being is resisted, fear will exist, and so will hell.
Why does it say in the Bible that the earth will be destroyed by fire?
Look around you. The fear and fire of rage are everywhere. It is incinerating all those aspects of humanity that refuse to awaken.
So hell boils down to simple terror.
Very humorous. The point is, all suffering comes from resisting the flow of evolution, or the will of your higher self, which is God.
Ooh, fire bad, Og frightened.
You are a veritable fountain of congeniality today. You definitely seem to be a rising ape rather than a fallen angel. Seriously though, how could fire be bad? Fire is a primal element. The metabolism in your body is a furnace, after all. Fire simply needs to be balanced with the cooling elements of spirit.
Is the rage in humanity related to global warming?
Of course, emotions directly affect weather as much as weather directly affects emotions. Resistance creates heat in all dimensions and on all planes.
I guess I never really thought of fire being associated with rage.
And rage is directly ignited by fear.
Whistling past the psychological graveyard.
He who binds to himself a joy, the winged life doth destroy. But he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise. William Blake.
You refer to the guides even more than you do to God. Why is that exactly?
Because the term God has become an emotional trigger for many humans. God doesn't care what name you use to describe him, her, or it. All that is required is the grateful acceptance of what mystics call the breath of life from the fountain of goodness. Some call this verdant fountain God, but overly religious terms can force new seekers to shut down, so you must be careful when using them.
Personally, I've believed in and called him God my whole life.
God is the principle of goodness itself. The term God is simply the root word of good, and there's no need to anthropomorphize it into an old bearded guy in the sky unless you feel the need to.
Releasing addictions.
All suffering, stress, and addiction come from not realizing you already are what you've been looking for. John Kabat-Zinn.
Short-term pleasure, long-term pain, like pushing full throttle on a runaway train. Sticky as tar and sweeter than cane. Oh Lord, short-term pleasure, long-term pain.
I assume losing addiction smooths the dying or birthing process.
Of course, if you're wanting freedom, Like a hot air balloon, you should drop as many grounding physical and emotional weights as possible before taking to the sky.
It seems like whenever I give up one addiction, another one comes along to take its place.
There is usually a common order to the release of addictions. It may help to observe and contemplate the following sequence. The first addiction to be released is the mother's womb, and then the mother's milk, which occurs in the toddler stage. Sex and substances are next, occurring in the middle stages. Emotional addictions are slowly replaced with true love in the middle to late stages. Circular thinking and habits of negative thought don't usually leave until around the later stages. Food is released in the very late stage, air and breathing in the very, very late stage. The physical body itself is the last attachment to be released before entering the bardos and being caught by the awaiting midwife on the other side.
Addictions seem to be everywhere. What causes them in the first place?
The same thing that is at the root of all human problems. The fear that being oneself is not enough.
I know you said that when fear goes away, so does addiction. Still, my addiction to breathing is the one that intimidates me the most. It seems insurmountable.
The fear of not breathing is a major addiction engram and has long controlled you. And as long as it does, you will subtly doubt your immortality. It would be nice if you could release this terror before your death, so you could hit the ground running when you arise into the next world. Almost everyone waits to blow this engram until they're on their deathbed, however.
You said earlier that the survival impulse becomes evident when we try to stop breathing for an extended time. I can't imagine not breathing.
Look, the breath of life pulses throughout all creation. The universe exhales a big bang and inhales a big collapse. Each cosmic breath takes hundreds of billions of years in your time frame. Regardless of what plane you are on, you'll always breathe at some smaller harmonic of this giant cosmic breath cycle.
Not being able to catch my breath really freaks me out.
You're simply learning to breathe at a different rate. You will breathe at a much longer, slower frequency as you expand and grow from plane to plane. Each next higher plane has a slower, deeper rate of breath. The most important function of every midwife on every plane is to get each newcomer's breath started at the new rate.
Man, that is so right. The first breath of each of my kids was always the main event at their birth.
New breathing comes easier for those who at least try to address their addiction to their old rate of breath before their transition.
It still sounds impossible for me.
Those under the weight of addiction simply need to turn to the invisible world and ask, even demand, with all the intensity they can muster. Freedom will come when the timing is right.
I asked intensely when I quit smoking, but it still took several tries.
Pulling away from an addiction is like pulling baby teeth. Sometimes you have to wiggle and loosen them a bit before they come free. The key is to keep nagging your guide. You will lose your addiction because your guide is mandated to help eliminate that fear when the timing is right.
It's probably just because you're sick of hearing me whine all the time.
Hungry ghosts.
Pity the specters burning with desire, but with no body to help them quench the fire.
Speaking of addictions, what are those hungry ghosts spoken of by the Tibetan Buddhists?
Hungry ghosts are the earthbound souls whose addictions were so great and their dependence on the spiritual world so scarce that they got stuck in the birth canal before reaching the light at the end of the tunnel.
But everybody leaves here with some addictions, don't they? Some residual addictions?
Yes, but those who have learned to rely on forces higher than themselves, or those who have made contact with their guide, are gently released from most of their attachments before going through into the bardos.
This mercy also extends to include hungry ghosts, doesn't it?
For a while they'll wander through the nether regions looking for an addicted earth dweller with an energy field or aura that they can attach to for contact relief. A good psychic can walk into an old bar and see them clinging to the auras of many of the unconscious, long-time bar dwellers in there.
Geez, that sounds almost hopeless.
It's not hopeless at all. They'll stubbornly stay with their earthbound addictions until they get so tired of suffering that they finally turn to the heights for help, when it will, of course, be forthcoming.
Section 2. When Death is Imminent. Chapter 13. Friends deliver friends.
My dear friend, this day I commit you to the arms of your invisible beloved.
Helping others die seems to be a major responsibility.
No one is closer to God than someone helping others during the two most important events on earth, the crisis of being born and the crisis of dying.
Well, when you put it that way, it sounds like a profound and disturbing obligation to help others with both of these transitions.
For those who are awake enough to help, it is a profound joy. The dying, who have connected with their inner guides, of course need little earthly assistance. But those who don't look to a higher power may experience terror, and this is where your guidance is the most helpful.
Delivering your beloved pets.
Heaven goes by favor. If it went by merit, you'd stay out and your dog would go in. Mark Twain.
I've always loved dogs, but they have such a short life. It breaks my heart every time one of them leaves.
Your responsibility to your innocent animal friends is the same as it is to humans. It is up to you to help ease their transition as much as possible, once you're aware enough to rise to the task and help the process.
Well, I'm always willing to relieve the suffering of animals. Believe it or not, I'm more terrified of my dogs dying than myself. Losing my last little dog was more of a tearful event than when my mother passed, and that makes me feel guilty.
It's understandable. Losing an innocent pet is similar to losing a child. They look up to you with trust. After all, to them, you're God.
To my pets, I'm God?
Just like humans are God's pets. The love that you have for your pets is identical to the love that God has for you.
Wow, had I known that God loves me as much as I love my dog, I'd never worry again.
You look up to God with trust, just like your dog looks up to you. That is why you should bring them peace whenever possible. With karma being what it is, how you relate to the least of these is how you will be treated by your helpers on the other side.
Do we create negative karma by having the vet euthanize our pets at the end of their days?
Not if they're suffering. When you're in the position of bringing comfort to your animals, it causes you to face your own passionate depths. This serves to give birth to a higher love sprouting from within your broken heart. It helps greatly if you can see your pets as extensions of yourself. This allows both of you to experience the higher divine love waiting in the wings. When your dear animal friend is going through the veil, say to him or her, "Dear one, you are a unique reflection of my own holy love. Thank you for sharing your short life with me."
That's intensely moving.
Being the compassionate being that you are, you can help spare your animal friends unnecessary fear and suffering. You can help catapult them into a state of wonderful peace until such time as you can rejoin them.
This topic is almost too painful to bear.
Not for long, but you've heard enough for now. Let's close the topic. Let's close it with this. As he or she is passing through the veil, hold your pet in your arms and say quietly, "It's time for you to enter the great heart from whence we both emerged. I feel in you the precious love that our source has projected onto us, and now I return you to those same loving, invisible arms. Those we love never truly leave us."
Chapter 14, Helping Humans Through the Veil.
There are some things death cannot touch. Jack Thorne.
Just can't spend my life in darkness, so it's time I moved along. Is there a song that I can leave for you? Better yet, why don't you come along? We're gonna make it this time. Looks like I'm gonna get away, though the sheriff's close behind. Looks like I'm gonna get away this time, this time, this time.
Helping humans through the veil is different for me. They don't seem to need me like my pets do.
By learning to detach from your pets emotionally while still loving them with all your heart is a preview of the kind of compassion needed when helping your human friends and loved ones across. Persistence in fearlessly diving into this intense, heart-opening event will eventually blossom into a bodhisattva or Christ-like love.
A bodhisattva, one who would enter hell itself to save another being.
Yes, one who would sacrifice the bliss of union with their source in order to rescue one soul caught in a cycle of suffering. Anyone who has relieved the suffering of a dear loved one knows something of what moves a bodhisattva.
I think losing my pets has given me a glimpse of those depths.
There's no work more important for humans than to show a person how to access their own inner guide. The sooner this can be done, the better. This may be done by talking with them during the transition or reading inspired passages from books like the Tibetan Book of the Dead. As an acting guide, you should gently suggest that they listen for and try to imagine their own guiding angel. This should be done before one totally leaves the physical plane, if possible. You can do this successfully for even up to 3 days after clinical death. But the sooner this can happen, the smoother your friend's death will be.
Finding the peace necessary for this transference must be particularly difficult for one who is conscious of themselves dying.
As I said, a death is much easier when all other options are closed to them. Portals in the veil dilate and open wide for a sincere person who is dying and willing to be helped from the other side.
I've helped other people die, and it seemed to me like they didn't even know I was there.
Oh, they knew you were there. They were just busy meeting their helpers on the other side. I assure you your help was very welcome, even if it seemed they didn't acknowledge you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
In fact, dying people who seem to babble incoherently are already communicating with their discarnate helpers in the next bright world. The light at the end of the birth canal swiftly releases all fear because the awareness of the illusory nature of death becomes apparent.
The next bright world? How can we be sure it will be bright?
When you were born into your present world, it was larger and brighter than the dark womb you came from. It is this way for every new birth and every new realm, unless one has consciously chosen the path of darkness, which is very rare.
I see what you mean. I wish I would have had this information to help my parents and my brothers when they died.
Your loved ones had help on the other side, I assure you. All these things happen in the order they're meant to for those of goodwill. When those who die finally make their connection with their guide, all is well for them. It can be frightening for them until this happens. When it does, they'll naturally let go and follow them into the light. One need not worry about anything like watching for the Bardo realms to appear. The guide has the single function of watching over this process and has things well in hand.
It is comforting to know that there's help even if a dying friend hasn't connected with their guide yet. What can those who are still in bodies do to help a passing person most effectively?
A confident, soothing voice reading inspiring passages from their favorite scriptures or poetry. Soft music, candles, even a fragrant bouquet of flowers or incense can be very helpful, invoking invisible helpers. This will open a joyful portal for the departing spirit.
Well, I'm certainly no expert, but I would still like to help.
Here's something else you may have forgotten. If you're courageous, you can greatly help to create a smooth transition by taking on the denied fear of a dying friend. This is easy for a guide who knows what he is doing because he has already learned to find, pierce, and drain those engrams of another in order to be totally released into the cosmos.
Is this what they meant when they said that Jesus died for your sins?
Good observation. Christ is not only a bodhisattva and master of sacrificial love, he is also the avatar of the age of fishes. That's why global time was reset and started over again at year 0 at his birth.
The age of fishes. Is that why the symbol of Christianity is a fish?
The astrological Piscean age is about fishes, but the new one will be about the element of air rather than water. That is when humans will finally get their wings.
Getting back to helping others with their dearth, what if one being helped doesn't acknowledge any force higher than himself?
Then your work becomes more difficult, but it is still always helpful. Any who have experienced love automatically believe in a force higher than themselves, even if they don't realize it yet. Many do wrestle with their lack of faith during this transition, but your courage as a guide will ease their angst and help them be ready for the great crossing.
You create your loved ones, and they create you.
This may be the hardest of all for you to accept. That's why we waited until the end of this interview to talk about it. Relationships don't just randomly meet. They create each other for their own growth. The spiritual vacuum of desire pulls them into existence. You project them from yourself and your enemies too.
Because we're baby gods?
As an awakening creator god, you're starting to see how you project animated life forms out into your world. The world is a movie screen of your own creation, and it exists so you may get to know previously unknown and unmanifested parts of yourself.
I create my loved ones. This is heavy duty.
And they created you as well. I told you this may be difficult. Furthermore, all your dead loved ones have never been more alive than they are right now. They have always lived within you, and they always will, just as you have always lived inside of God.
Well, this is consistent with humans being made in God's image and likeness.
Like God, you also project your hopes, desires, and fears out under the screen of your creation in the form of karma. You create an infinite number of living containers reflecting all the varieties of your infinite uniqueness back to yourself. These include your pets, all your relationships, and don't forget, you created your toaster, blender, and refrigerator too.
Huh? Oh, because everything is one, I get it. Thanks for the comic relief, but seriously, if my loved ones are just containers to reflect my own love back to myself, that means that I'm all there is. And that's one mighty lonesome thought.
There is only one. When we see with holy vision,
There's not lots of
there's
us.
not lots of us.
There's just one of
There's
us.
just one of us.
Different parts of us,
Different parts of us,
seeking all of us.
seeking all of us.
But if you must,
if you must,
I'll say to us,
I will say to us, I love you. I feel you. I want you to be you that God could bring eternal spring. Oh, yeah.
Releasing your most cherished loved ones.
Here's another hard one for me. How can we best deliver our children, mates, and closest family members at the time of their death or dearth?
You must first recall the nature of all your very close relationships. If you have a deep bond with another, no matter how brief, it is because you each have qualities the other one needs for their growth. That's why you created each other. If you marry another or find a deep bond with someone, it is because you each have aspects of the other one that you need to absorb. This is God's way of helping humans awaken to the fullness of what they already are. You both incarnated together in order to become each other. When you have absorbed what you need from each other, you each will move on. That's the way it's designed.
So relationships exist in order for people to become each other. And the two shall become one flesh. That's always struck me as a deep, mysterious line in the Bible.
Yes, people in close relationships actually do become each other, and when they separate, they each take a part of the other one with them when they leave.
I've seen elderly people that have been together for a long time. They actually seem to walk in lockstep with each other and even sound like each other after a while.
It is because they actually have taken on each other's essence. Both are now more complete because they not only have become more of themselves, but they have become more of each other as well.
I get it. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Likewise, you may have noticed how people even begin to look like each other, and their pets too. When you awaken, you'll see how the actual death of a close relationship is really quite impossible, because you have lived within each other since the very beginning.
I like that. It makes sense when you put it that way.
Consider the division of a one-celled animal like an amoeba that splits itself into two halves. If one of the halves dies, the other is not reduced because of it. The surviving half contains everything the other half had. Similarly, if you have a close loved one who departs, he or she has left their essence in you, and there it will reside for all eternity. Never forget the larger picture. Relationships exist so that we all may eventually recognize ourselves in each other. We have always been and always will be one. Eventually, our source will have completed his quest for self-realization. At that point, both creator and creation will be one once again.
Yeah, after 1 trillion years. I can't wait.
Such cynicism. Are you finally admitting that you're trapped in the illusion of time?
No, I know you're right, as always. Like the line in that Townes Van Zandt song, time was like water and I was the sea, so I shouldn't have noticed it passing. Still, that knowledge doesn't seem to ease the fear of loss.
The pain and fear will be there, and a time for mourning is called for. But this brief suffering is meant to help you distinguish the difference between emotional attachment and divine love. It helps you separate the wheat from the chaff of your own ego in order to become your higher, larger self.
I've never helped a real close loved one die. That has to be extremely difficult.
A broken heart is a sprouting heart.
Thy heart has been a fertile seed, waiting to sprout. A quote by Murahi Yeshiva.
The hardest thing about watching others who lose their loved ones is watching their inevitable heartbreak. I think my greatest concern is how am I going to deal with my own loved ones passing, and how are they going to react to mine? I'm not sure I can rise to the task.
As we have discussed, you're here to learn the difference between love and emotional attachment. The latter goes away, the former does not. An acorn has grown comfortable being an acorn and doesn't yet have the promising vision of its next life as a grand oak tree. However, womb comfort is only temporary, because life and evolution always get their own way.
That's where faith comes in again.
Faith builds the invisible matrix around which matter coalesces. You think your attachment to your loved ones bring you security, but it doesn't. Attachment always engenders suffering, and the greater the attachment, the greater the suffering.
So a broken heart is simply opening to new possibilities.
A breaking heart is a sprouting heart. In fact, when the heart starts breaking open, If one can relax and melt the emotions in the heart center, this makes room for massive new currents of love and joy to enter from the heavens.
So like you say, a broken heart offers a choice to become either bitter or better.
I recommend the latter, as it offers a fast-track opportunity for graduation into the higher realms. Such expansion not only helps the person passing over, but it also helps the loved ones left behind. This is how they individualize and learn to find their own I am.
You mean my passing could actually help my loved one become more himself?
Absolutely. The illusion of loss creates a vacuum that may be filled with a higher version of one's true self, especially if you're embracing grateful expectancy.
I understand. Jesus said, "If I go not away, the Comforter cannot appear to you. But if I depart, I will send him to you."
Yes, and Jesus was an avatar.
Still, nobody likes to see their loved ones suffer.
Would you deny them the same opportunity you've had? Surely you want them to evolve too. The best thing you can do is simply treasure your loved ones, and you will do this forever, regardless of what realm you're living in.
Well, that's good. Loving them is actually quite easy.
Smooth transitions into the higher realms depend on how much you and your loved ones have pursued self-realization. As I said, the most joyful deaths are reserved for those who treasure the truth of their essential nature above all else. They will have awakened themselves enough to see that birth and death are not different, but they're the same event.
Yes, a dearth, I get that. I love the idea of hands waving goodbye on one side of the veil while arms are simultaneously welcoming you from the other. I do like that.
Chapter 15, Appendix Section. Appendix A, The 5 Stages of Grief.
The late 30s and 40s brought about the first conscious recognition of the processes that define your mortality. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, in her seminal book on death and dying, has done significant research and endless interviews with hundreds of dying people, and found that there's a sequence that everyone goes through during their deathbed transition from life to the afterlife. These 5 stages of grief occur in the following order.
Denial.
This can't be happening, not to me. When you're teenagers, you feel immortal. You deny your human weaknesses, and the future seems very bright, until you get a glimpse of the fact that all humans are doomed to fail in the end.
Anger.
Why me? It's not fair. How can this happen to me? God, you're to blame. This is the syndrome of the angry young man in his 20s. Those in their 20s and early 30s tend to be uncomfortable and prickly toward life in general because their immortality has been challenged.
Bargaining.
I'll be good, God. Just let me live a little while longer, just long enough to see my grandchildren graduate. I'll do anything for a few more years. I'd give my life savings if I could only... Well, you bargain with God and promise to get busy being good by working harder and fulfilling your family responsibilities.
Depression.
I'm so sad. Why bother with anything? It's hopeless. I'm going to die, so what's the point? Why go on? Depression in the face of certain entropies starts to appear. This is when you search every nook and cranny for the solution to the speedy encroachment of your demise.
Acceptance.
I'm dying. I can't fight it anymore. I may as well prepare for it and glean what I can from the process. This is the final stage of grief. This is why the golden years become so peaceful for many, especially for those who have nurtured their spiritual life. In this last stage, the individual begins to come to terms with his or her mortality, or that of a loved one. This is usually when the inner guide appears to those who haven't yet made the connection. Since everyone starts to die from the moment they are born, this Kubler-Ross model roughly follows the Tibetan bardos and works for the various stages of your earthly existence as well.
Appendix B, The Bardos.
He whose head is in heaven need not fear to put his feet into the grave. Matthew Henry.
Could you please talk about the bardos from the Tibetan Book of the Dead?
The bardos are well-traveled midway transition states between your earthly life and the ultimate goal of your higher self. These astral states have been solidified by centuries of common belief and are described in depth in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Tibetan lamas have documented 6 states of awareness, or rooms, that arise just before, during, and right after death.
This sounds complicated. Do people have to totally understand the bardos in order to have a smooth transition?
No, Judeo-Christian and other Western programs are also able to accomplish the same end using different exercises like prayerful, grateful expectancy. Reading the bardos, however, can be quite effective for the dying. There are even faster methods of transition for impatient Westerners, like connecting directly with their inner guides. But the bardos offer a beautiful, ornate fullness. Those centuries of Tibetan Buddhism have infused much into them.
What if you're not a Buddhist?
Even non-Buddhists can benefit by these exquisite Tibetan exercises. They're particularly effective for those in a coma or in a semi-conscious state. Again, bardos may be leapfrogged by those already conversant with their guides because they will have previously already learned to transform their fears by practicing dying. Some courageous adventurers even manage to enter directly into the bliss of their highest omnipresent self in one single act of awakening, without the need for bardos or stages. But these fearless souls are rare.
The 7 primary bardos.
The first is the Shin-A bardo. The Shin-A bardo is the ever-present state of awareness in physical life. This is your familiar workaday state of consciousness from conception until the last breath. Number 2, the Milam bardo. The Milam bardo is the first awakening into the astral world of dreams, which is the awareness of the finer, less dense realm, just above the physical plane. The astral bardo. This is where you learn to fly and gather your treasures in heaven by way of your imagination. Number 4, the Samten bardo. The Samten bardo is the bardo of stillness. This is the quiet world visited most often by meditators and the advanced seekers of silence while still in physical existence. Number 5, the Shikai bardo. The Shikai bardo is the brilliant, luminous world which appears precisely at the moment of death. This is the arrival of the familiar light at the end of the tunnel, experienced by those at the exact time of their transition. Number 6, the Shonyid bardo. The Shonyid bardo is the first experience of unconditioned truth or reality for the traveler. This is the soul's reintroduction to its true nature, or the Dharmata. Number 7, the Sidpa bardo. The Sidpa bardo is the first experience of actually becoming that oneness or ultimate existence. This is the state of existence which is beyond all manifestation. It's the capstone of the pyramid of consciousness that only advanced devotees, metaphysicians, and occultists attain after the transition. In the language of Kabbalah, it is the crowning sphere called Keter.
Appendix C, Readings for Dying, to be read with a soothing voice by a human guide. Bardo reading number 1.
Now, when the bardo of dying dawns upon me, I will abandon all grasping, yearning, and attachment. Enter undistracted into a clear awareness of the teachings. I'll eject my consciousness into the space of unborn awareness. As I leave this compound body of flesh and blood, I will know it to be but a transitory illusion.
Bardo reading 2.
Introducing the dying person to their guide. Through your blessing, grace, and guidance, through the power of the light that streams from you, may all my negative karma, destructive emotions, obscurations, and blockages be purified and removed. May I know myself forgiven for all the harm that I may have thought and done. May I accomplish this profound practice of phawa, or transferring consciousness through the ring-pass knot, and die a good and peaceful death. And through the triumph of my death, may I benefit all other beings, living and dead.
Bardo reading 3.
When my time has come, and impermanence and death have caught up with me, when the breath ceases and the body and mind go their separate ways, may I not experience delusion, attachment, or clinging, but remain in the natural state of ultimate reality. You may often repeat these 3 readings for up to 3 days after death, when the silver umbilical cord is finally detached.
Khalil Gibran.
Trust your dreams, for in them is hidden the gate to eternity. Your fear of death is but the trembling of the shepherd when he stands before the king, whose hand is to be laid upon him in honor. Is the shepherd not joyful beneath his trembling, that he shall wear the mark of the king? Yet is he not more mindful of his trembling? For what is it to die but to stand naked in the wind and melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it too may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? Only when you drink from the river of silence shall you indeed sing. And when you have reached the mountaintop, then you shall indeed begin to climb. And when the earth shall claim your limbs, then you shall truly dance. Khalil Gibran.
Thomas Merton.
I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I'm following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope that I have that desire in all that I'm doing. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may not know anything about it. Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost. And the shadow of death I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone.
From Birth to Birth, an interdimensional adventure, written and narrated by Ron Lloyd. Headings read by Cynthia Lloyd. Original music written and performed by Ron Lloyd.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.